Chapter 1569. On the top of the cave, the water droplets that had gathered continuously dripped onto Su Yi's face. As he gradually opened his eyes, the light that shone in from outside the cave made Su Yi frown. His body, that was still burning hot, was extremely dehydrated. Su Yi swallowed his saliva and realized that he was in a cave. The air was filled with the fragrance of a young girl, like an orchid. It was very pleasant to the nose. The memories from before gradually surged into his mind. Su Yi used his hand to shake his head. That beautiful and dreamy soft body still caused his imagination to run wild. He suddenly became alert and opened his mouth to call out, "Jing air." Looking around, Yunjing's figure was nowhere to be seen. In the narrow cave, there was only the unconscious Wang Chuanda. Before Yunjing left, she had already released Wang Chuanda. Looking at Wang Chuanda, he saw that his face was covered in blood. He had lost his left arm, and both his legs were crippled due to excessive bleeding. He was extremely pitiful. Su Yi suddenly sneered. Looking at himself again, he was covered by a thin layer of robe. He lifted the robe and saw that he was naked. His head immediately heated up, and he muttered, "Could it be that what happened before was not a dream?" Just as he was about to get up, a few strands of long hair beside him floated down. Su Yi grabbed them in the air. They were Yunjing's long hair. And on the ground, there were a few drops of red that were like red plum blossoms in the snow. It was instantly eye-catching. Boom! Su Yi suddenly activated his chi of vitality. The Origin Supreme technique spun rapidly like a gear. The chi of vitality in the Great Void Spirit was already extremely abundant at this time. Divine brilliance surged, and the 4 different attributes of chi of vitality surrounded his body. Among them, the water attribute radiance was extremely dazzling. It was as blue as the divine light of the deep sea. The surging waves seemed to have transcended the heavens and the earth, condensing into a giant whirlpool in front of Su Yi, pushing out layers upon layers of waves, causing the entire cave to shake incessantly. Countless flying ashes fell down. Such an understatement of the enormous power generated by such a huge move made Su Yi speechless. Within his wide meridians, Yuan Qi surged out from his fingertips. With a wave of his hand, the wall was immediately pierced through, forming an extremely deep hole. Peeking into his mind, Su Yi could feel that his aura and cultivation base had reached a whole new level. The energy spreading around him caused the void to hum. 4th level of the Origin Emperor Realm, close to the 5th level of the Origin Emperor Realm. Su Yi couldn't help but shudder in fear. Did Yunjing really help him refine the Crimson Water Heavenly Crystal? You didn't get as many benefits as that girl did. The Iron Soulfish saw that Su Yi had already woken up and was lying in the entryway with his eyes closed, as carefree as ever. Su Yi frowned and looked around. The Iron Soulfish's aura was also much stronger than before. He exclaimed, "Where's Yunjing? Where is she? What are you yelling at me for? If it wasn't for that girl sacrificing herself to save you, my old Tai would have disappeared with you. You're still yelling here. Old Tai, hurry up and tell me where she went." Su Yi couldn't wait any longer. He casually took out a brocade robe from his interspatial bag and put it on before rushing out of the cave. Zong. The morning sun was strong. The golden light was like a sharp arrow that shot onto Su Yi's face. The warm light made Su Yi feel very uncomfortable. Yunjing! Yunjing! Su Yi spread out his spiritual senses. Amidst the whistling mountain winds, the aura of a 4th-level Origin Emperor realm fully extended. However, he couldn't sense Yunjing's figure at all. Don't waste your efforts. She's already gone. The Iron Soulfish sighed. Su Yi's gaze trembled. He was extremely disappointed and muttered, "Why didn't you stop her? I have a lot of things that I haven't told her. Why did she leave?" After saying that, he walked into the cave dejectedly and sat down absent-mindedly. He held the clothes that Yunjing had left behind and remained silent. The energy in your body is very strange. Yunjing used her primordialine body to refine the Crimson Water Heavenly Crystal to help you get through the crisis. Although both of you have made some achievements, what she had to endure was much more than you could imagine. Moreover, because of the iron soulfish didn't finish his sentence and continued. Because Yun Jing had saved him, the number of wood soul crystals she could use was limited. The iron soulfish felt that it would be better for Yun Jing to tell him personally about the consequences. In any case, leaving you temporarily is the best choice for her. At least for now, you're not worthy of her. The iron soulfish's gaze was sharp and solemn. What do you know? Then were you hiding? The iron soulfish asked in return. He was at a loss for words. He didn't know where to start. The backlash from the mysterious ball of light was so severe that it was beyond his imagination. I don't know either. I've been carrying it since I was young. Su Yi's bewildered eyes contained a hint of coldness. He couldn't explain these things. Was he supposed to tell the iron soulfish that he came from Earth, and that he already had this mysterious brick-like ball of light when he was on Earth? He wanted to know the origins of all these things, and he had to put them on the agenda and find out as soon as possible. Ahem. He remained silent for a long time. The iron soulfish broke the silence and comforted him. If it's fated, you'll meet. I bet that the two of you are bound tightly together. The prerequisite is that you have to be strong enough. You have to be able to stand in front of her with your head held high. Hearing this, Su Yi's lips curled into a smile. He was slightly relieved and said with a smile, "Old Tai, you didn't live for 10,000 years in vain." He immediately thought it through. When he first met Yun Jing, she often said that she wanted to bring him home and also talked about the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. Presumably, he would be able to see Yun Jing when he arrived at the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. All right, I'll get stronger as soon as possible. I want to see Yun Jing as soon as possible. He was startled and regained his confidence. After saying that, he stood up, and the air around him surged again. The strength of a fourth-layer Origin Emperor was much stronger than a second-layer Origin Emperor. With this sudden increase in strength and the trip to the Heavenly Palace, He believed that He would be able to obtain good results in the Heavenly Wind ranking tournament. Work hard from now on. Kid, you still have a long, long way to go. This world will change because of you. The iron soulfish's eyes drooped, as if he was about to fall asleep. Pucci. Su Yi's mood instantly improved. Just as he was about to praise the iron soulfish, he heard a slight snoring sound from the entrance. This old fellow. Sigh. He immediately shook his head and smiled bitterly. Other than being a demonic creature, it was no different from ordinary demonic beasts. In fact, it was even more sensible. As if recalling something, He took out a glazed treasure box from his spatial bag. The 9 orifices returned to sun leaf inside received the sunlight and seemed to be bursting with vitality. It jumped from the corner to the side of Su Yi and bowed to greet him. Chapter 1570. You little thing, you're really smart. Did you know I was looking for you? Su Yi smiled faintly. Thinking of the mysterious space, Su Yi's eyes lit up. Any kind of spirit herb could be grown in the herb field, and even a profound spirit tree could grow stronger. Wouldn't this little leaf grow into a 9 orifices return to Yang Forest in the future? Ha ha! He couldn't help but feel excited when he thought of this idea. Carrying the colored glass treasure box, he walked towards the unconscious Wang Chuanda in the corner and stomped heavily on Wang Chuanda's legs. Wang Chuanda's bloodshot eyes suddenly opened wide, as if he was in a dream. When he saw Su Yi's figure, a look of panic immediately crept onto his face. It's you. You're Su Yi. What are you doing? Wang Chuanda's left hand clawed at the ground with great difficulty, blood dripping from his fingertips as he crawled towards the entrance of the cave. Wang Chuanda, who only had one arm, dragged his legs and wriggled like a lowly insect, seeking the hope of survival. Every time Wang Chuanda struggled to crawl an inch, Su Yi's palms would flash with an icy blue light, blasting an extremely deep hole an inch in front of Wang Chuanda's body. The enormous power made Wang Chuanda's entire body tremble. It was a ghastly sight to behold. Looking at the astonishing strength in front of him, Wang Chuanda's eyes trembled slightly. He sucked in a breath of cold air, and a feeling of goosebumps rose up his spine. Ah! After a few times, Wang Chuanda panted like a cow and collapsed on the ground like a bellows, giving up on crawling. His face was covered with deep wrinkles, and his cheeks were sunken, making him look like a monster that was neither human nor ghost. Su-yi, if you want to kill me, then kill me. Don't humiliate this old man here. This old man would rather die than submit. Su-yi sneered, the scene of him being humiliated by Wang Chuanda once again flashing through his mind. At that time, Wang Chuanda's sinister and mocking face was like that of a clown, constantly encouraging Su-yi to work hard for revenge. Suddenly, endless anger and surging fighting spirit surged into Su-yi's heart. That old thing sure has a backbone. A cold light rose. Su-yi's eyes darkened, and a roar burst out from his throat. All right, let me see how long your backbone can last. The primordial chi under Su-yi's feet rose abruptly. Like a flowing fire, he brought Wang Chuanda to the edge of the cliff. The waterfall that flowed down kept wetting Wang Chuanda's clothes. Gradually, he revealed a look of horror. The strong are respected, and the weak are prey to the strong. If you want to blame someone, you can only blame yourself for being too weak. Su-yi's lips curled into a smile. Wang Chuanda and Su-yi were all too familiar with this sentence. Today, Su-yi returned it to Wang Chuanda in its entirety, allowing Wang Chuanda to become a fish on the chopping block. The mountain peak was bitterly cold and incomparably fierce. It was like a sharp knife scraping across one's face, causing pain. Su-yi's robe and hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes were filled with anger as he tightly clutched Wang Chuanda's neck. Su-yi had been climbing for too long today. The flames of revenge were like an erupting volcano, gushing out layer by layer with monstrous hatred. Immediately, his right foot heavily stepped on Wang Chuanda's head. Wang Chuanda was pressed tightly against the ground. His incomparably weathered face had been completely scraped by the gravel, dripping with blood. There was not a single place that was intact, and the rotten flesh was so deep that the bones could be seen. Su-yi, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Wang Chuanda's eyes were fierce as he looked at Su-yi, the hatred in his eyes overflowing to the sky. Wang Chuanda, do you still remember what I said? If I didn't die that day, I would cut you into pieces. I didn't expect you to deliver yourself to me. Good, very good. After saying that, Su-yi's knuckles were pressed so hard that crackling sounds could be heard. His laughter was full of carefreeness and arrogance. Bang! Su-yi stomped heavily on Wang Chuanda's skull. Instantly, a slight cracking sound could be heard, followed by a series of painful groans. The immense force exerted caused Wang Chuanda's eyes to become unfocused. He was on the verge of death. Wang Chuanda, let me tell you, I am a justice. Do you still remember the cliff? Today, I will let you have a taste of falling off the cliff. Su-yi said coldly. His deep eyes quietly emerged a crimson color. Every word seemed to come from the roots of his teeth. The cold air was turbulent, and he was like a blood-red god of death. The surging murderous aura shrouded Wang Chuanda's body, and he couldn't help but shudder. Boom! Su-yi's eyes were fierce. He roared in his heart. He lifted his right foot and suddenly stomped down. The incomparably heavy force directly smashed into Wang Chuanda's body like a cannonball. Pooh! Wang Chuanda's internal organs were squeezed into a ball, and a large amount of blood spurted out. His vision turned black, and he fell down from the cliff like a kite with a broken string. Su-yi's eyes shone brightly. His palms stretched out continuously, and a matchless fire attribute light burst out from his palms. It was like a scarlet dragon that struck the forest below. Rumble! Like a fiery storm, it directly exploded in the forest. The red fiery whirlpool released a monstrous shockwave, and a series of sonic booms rang out. In an instant, the temperature of the entire forest rose, and all the plants in the forest were burned to ashes. Countless low-level barbaric beasts rushed out from the messy valley. Wang Chuanda gritted his teeth and looked at the hellish forest below him. If he fell down, even if his body wasn't smashed into pieces, he would still be turned into a pile of ashes. Whoa! The beasts roared continuously, and the sea of flames trembled. You want to die? Not so easy. Su Yi's eyes flashed with a cold light. The accumulated anger in his heart was completely released at this moment. Following which, Su Yi's feet surged with a ray of fire elemental energy. He lightly stepped out with the Fuyao 100 transformation steps, like a butterfly circling in a dream, and with a turn of his body, he threw the unconscious Wang Chuanda up. The savage beasts below bared their fangs, and their roars shook the heavens. The bloody atmosphere had stimulated their primitive bestial instincts, and they charged towards the direction where Wang Chuanda had fallen. The scene was extremely thrilling, and a terrifying cycle of reincarnation. Old fogey, you haven't redeemed your sins yet. Su Yi looked coldly at the unconscious Wang Chuanda with disdain. Bam! Carrying Wang Chuanda, Su Yi returned to the cave and used Cloud Shadow treading frost to seal the entrance of the cave. Boom! A mysterious space opened up in the cave. An extremely dense Ling Qi gushed out. It was as though the energy had traveled through the ancient times and was spiraling rapidly in the sky. Su Yi felt as though a mysterious energy was flowing through his body, and he felt extremely comfortable. The scene that entered his eyes caused Su Yi to be even more astonished. Putting down the colored glass treasure box and Wang Chuanda, Su Yi looked at the vast and mysterious space. It was already difficult for him to use his consciousness to estimate the size of the space. Chapter 1571. And what made Su Yi feel even more strange was that there was a new change at the side of the spiritual pool. With a light step, a few afterimages flashed past in the air, and Su Yi directly came to the side of the spiritual liquid pool. An incomparably azure crimson heavenly crystal, which was suffused with mystical runes, was currently spinning in the air above the first spirit liquid pool. The spinning radiance, together with the rapidly moving icicles, caused the entire space to become even more sacred and mighty. An incomparably mighty and domineering aura spread out invisibly. Su Yi's mind instantly trembled, and a giant radish demonic beast rushed out from the herb field at the side and said excitedly to Su Yi, "Little Su, you're so lucky. So lucky. How did the crimson water crystal appear here?" "Grandpa Ginseng, you know a lot. You even know about the crimson water crystal." Su Yi's eyes were filled with astonishment as he spoke absent-mindedly. He opened his mouth and didn't pay attention to what the blood jasper Ginseng said at all. "Even if I refined the crimson water crystal, how did it appear in my own mysterious space?" Su Yi's heart was filled with questions. A faint voice gradually appeared in Su Yi's mind as it said with a huge yawn, "What if this thing was born here in the first place, and you just found it?" Zong! A bolt of lightning flashed across Su Yi's mind. Looking at the crimson water crystal that was as dazzling as the clouds, the illusory images alternated between light and dark. Su Yi's mind instantly felt like it was about to sink into oblivion. The scorching temperature gradually rose again, and a surge of battle intent surged continuously. Walala! The energy around him whistled and fluctuated like ripples, carrying a domineering and majestic aura. Looking at the crimson water crystal above the spiritual liquid pool, Su Yi's eyes were filled with even more bewilderment, and he couldn't help but feel a chill run down his back. It belonged here in the first place. This thought was too bold and simply inconceivable. Could it be that the mysterious space is related to the Seven Heaven Crystal? The Seven Heaven Crystal is also an item left behind by God, and this mysterious space is also a God's item? Thinking about it carefully, this wasn't impossible. It had always been Su Yi who brought things from the outside world into the space. It was the first time that things from the outside world had appeared in the space. Inside the space, there was only this small pool of spiritual liquid and this medicinal field that he had cultivated. There was nothing else. Boom! He felt as though he was being electrocuted. He muttered, "A spiritual liquid pool corresponds to a heaven crystal. Then, there should be another heaven crystal in the second spiritual liquid pool. Perhaps that's the case, but it's already not bad for this continent to have one heaven crystal. Let's take it slow. Perhaps once we gather all the sky crystals, we'll be able to find the origin of your mysterious space." The iron soulfish said softly. He muttered, gently raising his eyes. The incomparably vigorous energy between the heavens and the earth surged like layers upon layers of waves. Clanging sounds resounded in the air as wind and thunder rumbled. The imposing manner was extremely grand. "Grandpa Ginseng, how did you break through again?" He felt a little strange. The mediocre Jasper blood spirit Ginseng had actually risen by 2 levels in such a short period of time, reaching the 8th level of the demonic illusionary stage. The Jasper blood spirit Ginseng's roots fluttered. At this moment, it had become much larger than before, reaching as high as Su Yi's shoulder. If the bystanders or demonic beasts saw it, they would probably drool. Their thick whiskers were even emitting a brilliant light. They were extremely excited. "Kid, this space of yours is really a treasure. I know that you must have had some fortuitous encounter outside. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a big change here every once in a while." He shook his head and smiled bitterly. He pointed at the 9 orifices returned to Sun Leaf in the treasure box in the distance and said softly, "Grandpa Ginseng, do you know this little leaf?" The Jasper blood spirit Ginseng narrowed its eyes. With a wave of its hand, it strode over to the treasure box. Its eyes shone brightly as it said in surprise, "Kid, you even got the 9 orifices returned to Sun Leaf's prime leaf?" The prime leaf was the most tender among the return to Sun leaves. It was the one that grew the best. It could be transplanted and grafted to become another complete 9 orifices returned to Sun leaf. He was immediately overjoyed. He thought to himself, Jing-er and the others really know how to choose. They actually found the prime leaf of the 9 orifices returned to Sun leaf. "Grandpa Ginseng, you know about this? Where can I find the moon-devouring Bodhi goo? Do you have any ideas?" Su Yi's eyes shone brightly. He couldn't wait to help Ling Qianxue recover her body. The Jasper blood spirit Ginseng touched its chin with its hands that were full of whiskers. It said, "This little thing is still very tender. A complete 9 orifices returned to Sun leaf is incomparably huge. Just each leaf alone has a total of 9 veins. This little leaf still has to be left here to grow." After hearing this, Su Yi took a deep breath. He was like a deflated balloon. As expected, there was still a long way to go. "All right, Grandpa Ginseng, I'll leave this little leaf to you. Please take care of it. I'll definitely thank you greatly. Is there a need to talk about the word thank you between us?" The Jasper blood spirit Ginseng curled its lips. It thought to itself, "Don't look down on me just because my cultivation is low. I'm also a person who values loyalty." After that, Su Yi glanced at the 2 small pools of spiritual liquid again. Even the crimson water heavenly crystal had appeared. The surrounding land was still dry, and there were no signs of overflowing from the small pools. "Kid, it's all over there." Knowing Su Yi's thoughts, the Jasper blood spirit Ginseng put its hands on its waist and pointed proudly at the place where the spiritual medicine weapons were placed. It said, "I saw that the spiritual liquid was about to overflow. It's a pity, so I used bottles to store it for you. There are more than 1,000 bottles of various sizes. I'm exhausted." Su Yi looked in the direction of the bottle and was stunned. It was like a wall that was placed neatly. His gaze trembled as he bowed to the Jasper blood spirit Ginseng. "Grandpa Ginseng has worked hard. From now on, you can use the spiritual liquid here as you wish. I'll need Grandpa Ginseng to take care of this place in the future. That's not a problem. If it continues like this, my tribulation will come soon. The spiritual liquid is exactly the time I need it." The Jasper blood spirit Ginseng didn't stand on ceremony and said happily, "The demonic emperor realm was an unattainable dream for a spiritual medicine-type beast. Now, thanks to Su Yi, The Jasper blood spirit ginseng was naturally happy to take care of this place. After that, Su-Yi handed over all the spatial bags he took from the 100 Herbs Mountain to the Jasper blood spirit ginseng. Of course, in order to prevent the mysterious space from devouring the energy of the crystals, Su-Yi kept the origin stones and soul testing origin crystals in the spatial bags. The Jasper blood spirit ginseng was shocked again. There were so many books on cultivation techniques, martial skills, array diagrams, spiritual medicine, and spiritual medicine. It said softly, "Kid, did you rob a second-class sex treasury?" The 100 Herbs Mountain had 10,000 years of foundation. Compared to ordinary second-class sex, it was even better. Su-Yi smiled and didn't say anything. "All right, Grandpa Ginseng, I have a request." Su-Yi pointed at Wang Chuanda, who was lying on the ground, and said angrily. Chapter 1572. This guy has a blood feud with me. I once said that I would cut him into 1,000 pieces, but now is not the time to kill him. I want him to taste the pain of the heavenly thunder in this mysterious space. When the time comes, I will let him go see King Yama. I understand what you mean. The blood Jasper ginseng had already seen Su-Yi's methods of messing with people. Immediately, an evil smile appeared on its face. Boom! The roots of the blood jade spirit ginseng danced in the air, and a divine radiance rippled out. A majestic medicinal power spread out and entered Wang Chuanda's body. As soon as Wang Chuanda opened his eyes, he saw an incomparably large radish looking at him with an evil smile. His legs were already crippled, and his only remaining arm was lying on the ground because of his imbalance. His eyes constantly drifted, and his pupils shrank as he looked at the spiritual power that seemed to have crossed the heavens and earth. Where is this? Am I dead? Bang! The tentacle flew and hit Wang Chuanda's wound like a long whip. The wound that had already scabbed over began to bleed again, and Wang Chuanda's body shook violently from the pain. Dire Grandma, look carefully at who this is. The blood Jasper ginseng was not polite at all. Su-Yi's enemy was Grandpa Ginseng's enemy. Su-Yi's yuan qi surged, and his hair danced in the wind. His temperament was extremely domineering as he approached Wang Chuanda with a smile on his face, as if he was looking down on ants. You're not dead yet? You are indeed a tough nut to crack. Wang Chuanda's heart skipped a beat as he looked around. The spiritual energy in front of him was incomparably rich and rich. There was a mist of energy everywhere, and the boundless space was enshrouded in divine light. A majestic aura slowly fluctuated, as if it had crossed the ancient times and descended here. Where is this? There is actually such a place in this world. The vast and boundless energy caused Wang Chuanda's eyes to flicker with shock. Su-Yi was all smiles as he crossed his arms and said, "Didn't you always want to know what kind of secret treasure I have? I didn't bring you here." Immediately, Su-Yi's hand shook and yuan qi trembled. Fire attribute yuan qi suddenly whistled out, and the surging yuan qi shot towards Wang Chuanda's lower abdomen. Bang! Yuan qi stirred, and the world was filled with a blazing aura. It emitted a dense light, mysterious and unpredictable. A huge energy wave appeared around Wang Chuanda, spreading out in all directions like a ripple. Wang Chuanda's eyes immediately became unfocused and lifeless, his entire body deflating like a punctured ball. Su-Yi. At this moment, Wang Chuanda's Dantian Spirit Sea was like a broken water tank. All of his yuan qi flowed along his meridians and turned into yuan qi light threads, merging into the vast spirit qi of heaven and earth and disappearing. Only Wang Chuanda, who'd curled up like a prawn, remained, and he lay tightly on the ground with an extremely unsightly expression. His hair was disheveled, his face dirty, his body covered in blood, and strands of cold air ceaselessly emanated from the roots of his teeth. Su-Yi, why didn't you kill me? Why didn't you kill me? Su-Yi shook his head and said in a deep voice, "For some people, death is a kind of release. For you, you must suffer a fate worse than death. Do you want to die?" Death also requires courage. Like a crazy lion, Wang Chuanda stared at Su Yi, his whole body trembling. At this time, he truly felt what was called the law of the jungle, and the strong were respected. What kind of stupid mistake did he make in the past? What kind of demon did he provoke? Su Yi, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost. Wang Chuanda was extremely sinister. Bang! The blood jade spirit ginseng's face was full of disdain. Its roots with the sound of wind and thunder once again hit Wang Chuanda's body, and it angrily said, "You're about to die, and you're still yelling here. You're the kind of human that I hate the most. Just one look, and I can tell that you're not a good person." Finished speaking, the long roots wrapped around Wang Chuanda like a dragon and placed him in the place with the densest spirit chi of heaven and earth. Wang Chuanda's face was ashen from the pain, and his face was blank. His mouth was still chattering nonstop, loudly cursing Su Yi. Rumble. In the mysterious space, a hazy light surged, and a thick dark cloud suddenly condensed. Visible to the naked eye, the sound of thunder was loud, and streaks of red lightning bolts brazenly struck down like a thunder dragon. At this moment, Wang Chuanda really closed his mouth. His resentful eyes were filled with shock and panic, and his trembling body was like a frightened little bird under the thunderclouds. Bang, bang, bang. 3 streaks of red lightning continuously fell down, and all of them hit Wang Chuanda's body. Originally, there were only a few places with good skin, but with the bombardment of the lightning, the skin on his back was torn open and blood gushed out, revealing the white bones. Pucci! Another lightning bolt fell from the sky, carrying a destructive aura, directly hit Wang Chuanda's body. Immediately, a mouthful of blood poured out, and his body was like charcoal. It was too horrible to look at, and it was a ghastly sight. He had already fainted again. Scream! Aren't you very good at screaming? Try to scold me again. Heavenly lightning will strike you to death, you bastard. The blood jasper spirit ginseng cursed, but it still wasn't satisfied. It stretched out its tentacles and struck twice more. As Wang Chuanda fainted, the mysterious space quieted down again, and the lightning that filled the sky calmed down as if it had a spirit of its own. Sui frowned as he looked at Wang Chuanda, who was coughing up large mouthfuls of blood. Black smoke continuously rose from the surroundings, and fresh blood filled the air. Grandpa Ginseng, you didn't beat him to death, did you? The blood jasper spirit Ginseng waved its hand and said, "Even if his cultivation is destroyed, the physical strength of the Origin Emperor realm won't let him die so easily, as long as his mouth isn't dirty." Then, the blood jasper spirit Ginseng flicked its beard, which rippled with dense demonic aura. It smiled and said, "Don't you know what Grandpa Ginseng does? After saving him, I'll let him suffer the heavenly lightning strikes." Hearing that, Su-Yi couldn't help but laugh. He said loudly, "All right, Grandpa Ginseng, I'll leave this place to you. When the time comes, I'll bring him out. And, little handsome, don't worry, it won't be so fast. How many years does a mortal live? It's an ancient great demon." Su-Yi nodded and kept the mysterious space. He returned to the cave and looked at the blue robe in his hand. A young lady's fragrance seeped into his nose again. Holding it tightly, Su-Yi's eyes became clear and resolute. He said in a deep voice, "Yun Jing, one day I'll stand in front of you with incomparable strength." Whoosh, whoosh. Su-Yi looked at the bright sky. Amidst the proud wind, an aura of heaven and earth that was free for him to roam was born. He embraced the heavens, and his heart was filled with daydreams of the future. Avenging Wang Chuanda is only the first step. I still have to flatten the sacred mountain. I want to completely erase the sacred mountain from this continent. The pleasure that he hadn't enjoyed for a long time made Su-Yi feel invigorated. He looked in the direction of the Chaos region and thought that it would be great if Merciless West was here. At this moment, I'm going to enjoy my life. Pleasure in repaying gratitude and revenge. I'll gallop. Chapter 1573. Looking up at the blue sky, Su-Yi thought to himself, Miss Li and Chu should be waiting anxiously. I have to hurry to Shunjian Gate. Let's go. Boom! A wisp of Yuan Qi light emerged from the bottom of Su Yi's feet. The fire attribute footwork faintly flashed out, streaking across the air and sprinting in the direction of Shunjian Gate. Somewhere between the green hills and the water, the scenery on both sides of the river was like an ink-splashed landscape that stretched for hundreds of miles. Mountain peaks and waves surged, layers upon layers of mountains, fascinating. The 1,000 peaks were like an enormous hand that had stretched out to embrace the mountains and plains, and they meandered along the mountain ridges. The river water was like a mighty and awe-inspiring golden dragon that coiled around, and its imposing aura was peerlessly powerful. The river water pierced through the mountains and broke through the walls. It was like a wild beast galloping. The clamoring river water carried a divine aura that soared into the heavens as it traveled for tens of thousands of miles. From the bottom to the top, the small mountain was like a sharp knife, with a few strands of milky white mist, like golden flowers standing proudly in the clouds. It was filled with layers upon layers of pavilions and pavilions. Magnificent and magnificent jade palaces could be seen everywhere, like tiny strips of light. The cliff that looked like it had been carved by a knife or an axe was indomitable, and a huge sect stood below it. At this time, a large wave of bright golden light rushed over from afar. It walked on the waves and arrived gracefully. The leader of the group was none other than the 100 Herb Academy's principal, Xin Yuan Li Sunday. Behind him was a group of 100 Herb Academy's deacons, Xin Imo, Lu Sierra, and the others. Each of them had a worried look on their face as they stood at the entrance. Dean, should we wait here for the summons, or should we go directly to apologize? One of them asked respectfully, his legs slightly trembling. Looking at the towering mountains in the sky, the deacon standing next to him felt his heart tremble. A chill ran down his spine, and his legs began to tremble uncontrollably. Xinyuan Emperor's grandson was also full of sadness. He shook his robe and said with a dignified expression, "You're a bunch of idiots. What else can we do now?" Elder Su and Elder Lu left so quickly. I'm afraid that the Lord has already known about it. My Lord. When they heard this name, everyone including Shan Mo, Lu Sierra, and the others were terrified to the point their faces turned ashen, and their pupils constricted as they were extremely shocked. Let's go. Bring a bramble and ask for punishment. Don't let the heavenly venerable descend upon 100 Herb Mountain, or else we will all die. Xinyuan Emperor's face was frosty, and a cold aura surged like a cold wave. Dang, dang, dang. Everyone heaved a deep sigh, all of them praying in their hearts. Then, with heavy footsteps, they stepped through the shining golden gate of the holy mountain. Inside the holy mountain, there was a richly ornamented hall that was filled with golden light. Elder Su and Elder Lu stood in the middle of the hall with serious expressions on their faces. They seemed to be arguing about something. Elder Su's voice was getting louder and louder. Don't try to persuade me. I, Su Zhangping, have waited here for so long, and not a single person has come out. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. How much had I suffered along the way? Do you still want to be bullied here? I'm telling you, Lu Feng, I, Su Ke, am not worthy of being shouted at by the Xiahong house. Tell me, what did he do on the way here? I would like to ask the Lord why he sent us to protect such a little kid. What's the meaning of that? He's an outsider, and he doesn't think for the holy mountain, but I, an old man, still have to think for the holy mountain. Elder Lu heard Elder Su's voice getting louder and louder, and his face suddenly sank. He was somewhat displeased and shook his robe heavily. Elder Su, we're all old people. What should be said and what should not be said, don't you know? The matter of the fifth holy son, the Lord will naturally make the decision. Don't you know where you are? How can you make such a big fuss? You're an old man. What a joke. Elder Su's face was red, and his white beard was fluttering. But now he calmed down a little. He knew that he was in the wrong, so he stopped shouting and sat down silently. Elder Lu took a deep breath, walked to Elder Su's side, and said softly, Elder Su, We have been in the Holy Mountain all our lives. Naturally, we have the best interests of the Holy Mountain. The Lord's heart is as clear as a mirror, and there is no need for others to criticize him. But this time, perhaps the fifth Holy Son is still young, so he has no scruples and acted recklessly. When we meet the Lord later, we have to think carefully about what we say. Then, Elder Lu added in a low voice, "The Holy Mountain is chaotic. I have already transcended the worldly affairs and shouldn't care. But I also shouldn't take the initiative to get involved. If we say this, we will inadvertently support that." Elder Lu's words were like pearls, and his words made Elder Su frown again. In the eyes of outsiders, the 9 holy sons and 9 holy daughters were the most powerful people under the age of 40 in the Holy Mountain. They were the 18 people that the Lord cared about the most. However, only the top powerhouses of the Holy Mountain knew clearly that one of the Holy Sons was the most unique existence, and that was the 5th Holy Son of the Xiehong house. The 5th Holy Son was brought back by the Lord halfway. He was arrogant, unscrupulous, and bold. His strength was unparalleled among his peers, so the Lord never blamed him. He was even favored by the Lord, but at the same time, he had been criticized by the people of the Holy Mountain. Everyone guessed that the reason why the Lord favored the 5th Holy Son was because of his extremely high talent and endless potential. He was really a genius, and the other reason was because of his mysterious background. In the Holy Mountain, the 5th Holy Son had always been a topic that was forbidden to be mentioned. The 5th Holy Son had always been heavily protected by the Lord, and he had never been allowed to participate in any large-scale events. The strangest thing was that the Lord had always adopted an attitude of allowing the 5th Holy Son to cultivate. It seemed that the 5th Holy Son was already invincible among his peers in the Holy Mountain with his own strength. Compared to the 1st Holy Son, who was already 35 years old, the Xiehong house, who was not even 30 years old, was much more outstanding than the 1st Holy Son at that time. Elder Su, remember that we are only going to the Chaos region according to the Lord's order. As for how to express other things, Elder Su should know more than I do. Elder Lu said as he glanced at the figure in the corner. At this moment, a graceful middle-aged woman walked out from the side hall. She had a dignified temperament. She did not wear any makeup, but her skin color was like the morning sun reflecting on the snow. Her long yellow dress was very fitting for her figure, and she had mature charm. She was the Lord's personal servant, Deacon Rong. She had heard everything that the two of them were talking about. Deacon Rong, good health and bliss. Deacon Rong also bowed slightly and pretended that she did not hear anything. She made a gesture to guide the two of them and said, "Both of you have been running back and forth, and the Lord has specially allowed both of you to rest here. I did not expect you to cause such a commotion." Elder Su and Elder Lu did not say anything. They looked at each other awkwardly and cupped their hands. In the face of Deacon Rong's gentle but forceful questioning, the two of them were not angry. Instead, they were even more frightened. Chapter 1574. This was because Deacon Rong was the sacred sovereign's personal servant and had followed him for many years. Her status in the sacred mountain was not something an ordinary person could compare to. We were in a hurry and spoke without thinking. "Please forgive us, Deacon Rong. Please forgive us." Elder Su's face was slightly red. "The two of you come with me." Deacon Rong's expression was cold. She didn't answer and directly walked inside. Along the way, Elder Su and Elder Lu's eyes flickered. The oppressive atmosphere was like a boulder pressing down on their hearts, making it hard for them to breathe. Both of them had white hair and were already top experts. However, before they even reached the sacred sovereign's place, they already felt an unprecedented pressure on their minds. In a flash, after passing through several winding stone paths, Elder Su and Elder Lu arrived in front of a simple and old stone door amidst the rising dust. The surrounding cliffs stood tall, surrounded by mountains and verdant greenery. Deacon Rong gently knocked on the door and bowed his head. "Sacred Sovereign, Elder Su and Elder Lu have returned." After a while, A clear sound of water dripping could be heard from inside the stone door. A faint and old female voice could be heard. Elder Sue, Elder Lu, what did you get from this trip? Hearing the sacred sovereign's voice, Elder Sue and Elder Lu's body trembled for no reason. When they were considering whether to tell her about the fifth saint's strange behavior in the Chaos Realm, Elder Lu took over the topic and bowed respectfully. Sacred Sovereign, this time, the 100-Herb Mountain suffered a great calamity because of Sue E. The fifth saint finally separated from us and went after the last crimson water, heavenly crystal. A moment later, the old voice became a bit forceful. The flying spirit birds in the surroundings immediately flew away as if they felt a boundless pressure. Because of Sue E. You didn't come back. This Sue E made the entire 100-Herb branch die with him, but the two of you came back safe and sound. Sacred Sovereign, the two elders couldn't express their bitterness. When they were in the Chaos Realm, they had already proposed to destroy the Bawang sect, but they were stopped by Xiehong Pavilion. Who would have thought that Xiehong House would escape the surveillance of Elder Sue and Elder Lu and leave on her own? In the end, it was discovered that she had been cultivating in the Spirit Treasure Tower for a period of time. In a 100-Herb barrier, he didn't even say a word to help Ouyang Jinwei. For the sake of the crimson water heavenly crystal, he had rushed into the barrier to snatch it without a second thought. Actually, what? Could it be that the two of you have objections to my arrangement to protect the saint? I wouldn't dare. It's our duty to protect the Holy Sun. We wouldn't dare to say such things. Lu Feng was extremely respectful and humble. Inside the stone door, there was no sound for a long time. Elder Sue's eyes lit up in embarrassment. However, during this trip, the fifth saint broke through to the second level of the Origin Emperor realm after reaching the Origin Void realm. Such strength and talent is truly the blessing of our holy mountain. Where's the fifth holy sun now? The Lord's old voice was filled with indifference. He did not seem to be surprised that the fifth holy sun's cultivation had improved so much. The corner of Elder Lu's mouth twitched as he looked at Elder Sue with resentment. He was blaming him for leaving in such a hurry. If anything happened to the fifth holy sun, he would have to bear the consequences. Elder Sue's face was ashen, and he didn't dare to say anything. Both of you can leave now. It's a waste to send the two of you to protect the fifth holy sun. Go to the Holy Spirit Mountain and rest for a year. Holy Spirit Mountain. The two of them looked at each other, and their faces darkened. The Holy Spirit Mountain was the place where the Holy Mountain secluded themselves for cultivation. The implication was that they were grounded for a year and could not go out. Elder Lu hurriedly pulled the angry Elder Sue out and comforted him softly. Be content. It's just a grounding. There's no other punishment. If the 100-Herb Mountain wants to blame it on us, you will suffer. Elder Sue heard and nodded repeatedly. He was relieved and no longer bothered about it. The two of them turned into two rays of golden light and flew to the Holy Spirit Mountain. After the two of them left, Deacon Roan continued to face the stone door respectfully and whispered, Holy Sage, the grandson of Xianyuan Emperor of the 100-Herb Mountain has brought his men to ask for punishment. How should we deal with this matter? He can't even deal with a little brat. His grandson of Xianyuan Emperor should disappear. Let the first Holy Sun and Elder Qin go. Yes. Deacon Roan whispered and went to give the order. Drip, drip, drip. The sound of water droplets was still echoing inside the stone door. A faint voice came from the sky again. Stinking brat has returned to the sect. Why don't you show yourself? Holy Sage. A woman's voice was faintly heard. Her voice was trembling. Old woman, I'm back. He saw a sexy and enchanting figure supporting a blood-stained figure as they walked in, trembling. It was Xiehong Lu and Li Ling who had just returned from the heavenly crystal barrier. Li Ling heard Xiehong Lu call the Holy Sage, and her legs immediately went soft. She looked at Xiehong Lu in horror, as if she was looking at a terrifying monster. Calling the Holy Sage like that was like courting death. Impudent. After so many years, you're still so unruly. I'm not from the Holy Mountain. What rules do I have? Xiehong Lu sneered and said softly, "How dare you? Even if you're not from the Holy Mountain, you should know that the Holy Mountain has treated you well after giving you so much time." Xiahong Lu frowned and did not say anything else. "What did you do in the Chaos region? Didn't I ask you to investigate it when you're stronger?" The holy sage said, "I think I'm strong enough." Xiahong Lu looked up. Her eyes were filled with hatred and murderous intent. "Then who gave you this loss? You're overestimating yourself." The holy sage sneered, but there was a hint of relief. Boom! Inside the stone door, a domineering and destructive aura poured into Xiahong Lu like a tidal wave, causing the entire stone door to tremble. Poof! Li Ling felt a surge of blood in her chest, and she collapsed to the ground, unable to get up. She could only watch as Xiahong Lu spread out her yuan qi. However, she could feel that Xiahong Lu's aura had stabilized. The holy sage was actually healing Xiahong Lu. I almost got the crimson water heavenly crystal this time. Xiahong Lu's brows were filled with loneliness, and her eyes were filled with endless hatred. "Is it that Su-Yi?" The holy sage's voice was a little hoarse. "Yes, he's about the same age as the ninth holy maiden, but his cultivation is almost the same as mine. And at that time, his strength suddenly increased tremendously. It's really strange. Bring him back in the Tianfeng battle. I want to see if it has anything to do with that matter." With such talent, he was actually harmed by Wang Chuanda. The holy sage said softly, "All right, but what about Yuchi Changfeng in the Tianfeng battle? There's not much time left in the Tianfeng ranking battle for those under 35 years old. If you can't defeat him, it'll be hard for me to deal with him." The holy sage laughed and said softly. It was as if Xiahong Lu's injury had made the holy sage reevaluate the two of them. Chapter 1575. That's why I'm going into seclusion. I'm already practicing your method, Xiahong Lu said in a deep voice. There was another moment of silence. The conversation between the two was like an intimate conversation between a grandmother and her grandson. There was no trace of the majesty of Sacred Master. The rumored doting was actually like this. Li Ling was extremely shocked. "Which elder do you belong to?" The Sacred Master's voice was long and old. It was like the sound of a dead sea, without any emotion or color. Bang! Li Ling immediately stood up and kowtowed to the stone door. She said, "Sacred Master, I'm the direct disciple of Elder Ing Changchun. I belong to the same faction." "Okay, I'll tell Ing Changchun. From now on, you'll follow the fifth saint and take care of his daily needs." "Old hag, what are you doing?" Xiahong House's eyes flashed coldly. She glanced at Li Ling with displeasure. Li Ling was overjoyed when she heard that. However, her body could not help but tremble when she saw Xiahong Lu's reaction. "If you die in less than half a month, Elder Mo has always looked down on you. Do you want me to collect your corpse?" The Sacred Master said calmly. "So what if I die? I'm destined to die early anyway. Then you can collect the corpse of this little servant girl. You can leave now. I'm tired." In other words, it was the first time Xiahong Lu brought a woman to see the Sacred Master. She had also heard so many things that she should not have heard. Other than serving the Sacred Master, Li Ling could only die. Boom! Then, the stone door slightly rumbled. The clear sound of water droplets could be heard. There was no response from inside the stone door. There was only a slight movement of dust. Xiahong Lu snorted angrily. A trace of hesitation flashed on his handsome face. He said to Li Ling, who was still on the ground, "Let's go. Follow me back to the Five Saint Pavilion." The Five Saint Pavilion was the residence of the fifth saint. No one had ever been able to get close to it. Li Ling immediately felt like she was falling into the clouds. She was in a daze as she followed the fifth saint into the vast mountains. In the front hall of the Holy Mountain, a man in golden robes was leaning against the main seat. He had the aura of a king that shook the world, and his figure was slightly slender. His evil and handsome face had a licentious smile as he played with a huge jade ring on his thumb, which was surrounded by golden light. Looking at the group of people crawling on the ground in front of him, the man's long and narrow eyes glowed. "Dean Xianyuan, It's been so many years since we last met. Thank you for bringing me such a great gift. The person who spoke was the great saint of the sacred mountain, Yuchi Changfeng, whom the Xiang house had mentioned. He was the first saint established by the sacred venerate. He was 35 years old this year and was at the 8th level of the Origin Emperor realm. It was rumored that he already had the strength of a half-step Origin ancestor. The moment Yuchi Changfeng's words left his mouth, the few people kneeling on the ground felt as if they had been struck by a divine voice from the heavens. Their divine seal suppressed the heaven and earth, and their bodies shuddered. Their vital qi surged wildly around their bodies, and they didn't dare to raise their heads. Xianyuan Jizue. It's been investigated that the cause of the disaster was Su Yi, who wanted to steal the crimson water crystal. He disguised himself and ruined the entire disciple ceremony. Even Mayor Ouyang and Ouyang Jinwei were severely injured. The 5th saint was fighting with him for the crystal, and his whereabouts are unknown. What? The 5th saint's whereabouts are unknown? Yuchi Changfeng stood up immediately, and a domineering aura of a king descended from the heavens. Immediately, Xianyuan and the others lowered their heads even more. Among the 9 saints, Yuchi Changfeng was known for being ruthless and temperamental. Today, when they saw him, they felt as if a sharp knife was hanging in their hearts, which could fall at any time. A dangerous aura filled the air. What happened? Yuchi Changfeng asked in a low voice. Dean Xianyuan raised his eyes and looked at Yuchi Changfeng with fear and trepidation. He trembled as he walked to Yuchi Changfeng's side, bowed, and told him the whole story. Ha ha ha! Suddenly, the great saint's laughter echoed in the hall. He looked at Dean Xianyuan with joy and said softly, "Very good, very good." The great saint's jealousy of the 5th saint had always been known by the entire sacred mountain. Xianyuan immediately rolled his eyes and said to the great saint, "The great saint is blessed with good fortune. You will definitely be able to represent the sacred mountain in the Battle of Tianfeng." Xianyuan Jizue, I am very happy with the news you brought back this time. The sacred mountain has asked me to deal with this matter, and it's all because of Su Yi. From today onwards, the 100 Herb Academy will be reorganized. Everyone is to hunt down Su Yi. If anyone has news about Su Yi, I will reward them handsomely. Yes. When Xianyuan saw that the Holy Sun was so happy, he winked at his subordinates, and they lifted up many boxes. Yuchi Changfeng asked suspiciously, "What's the Holy Sun's qi?" "This is..." "Great Saint, I heard that you were about to participate in the Battle of Tianfeng. These are the elite students of the 100 Herb Academy." Xianyuan Jizue pointed to Lu Xie and the others. "These kids have been given the soul-devouring bone pill by Su Yi. Only pure Saint Ruler Qi can cure them." Xianyuan Jizue smiled and said, "These little guys' families are more or less related to the elders of the sacred mountain. After the Battle of Tianfeng, if there is a slight deviation between you and the 5th saint, wouldn't it be a good thing?" Hearing this, Yuchi Changfeng's eyes suddenly flashed with a trace of light, and he laughed shrilly. "Oh, this Su Yi has repeatedly offended the sacred mountain. The 9th saint and the 5th saint have successively fallen in his hands. Even I'm a little interested in this little ant. These little guy's talents are not bad. I will arrange for the elders to take them in." Xianyuan Jizue, Lu Xie, and the others behind him all smiled happily. By bringing Shun Mo and the others, not only would they be able to answer to the elders of the sacred mountain, but they would also be able to rely on the great saint's thigh to solve the 100 Herb Mountains crisis. "Great Saint, there is also the Sacred Master and Elder Kwang." Xianyuan Jizue bowed his back, and his posture was extremely low. He did not dare to be careless in his words and actions. Yuchi Changfeng waved his hand, and his sharp laughter sounded again. A pair of slender hands held the armrest of the chair, and he sneered. "Since the Ouyang family has taken a bullet for the sacred mountain and the 5th saint, you naturally know what you're going to say outside. I will naturally give an explanation to Elder Kwang. I will personally report to the Sacred Master about the 5th saint. You take these people to heal." Old Chin. Boom. Behind the great saint, a golden ripple appeared in the air, and it was dazzling as if it had crossed the void. An old figure appeared from inside, and his aura was incomparably powerful. As soon as he appeared, the entire hall was dyed with golden light, and everyone swallowed a mouthful of saliva. An absolute powerhouse. It was said that every holy son and holy daughter would arrange for an elder to take care of their martial arts cultivation since they were young. All matters would also be handed over to this elder. This peerless expert in front of him must be the great holy son's personal elder. Chapter 1576. Let's go. Follow me to the Holy Stone Palace. Elder Qin said coldly. Xiang House, you want to compete with me for the Tianfeng battle? When I become the Holy Master, you will be the first to be sacrificed. Yuqi Changfeng's cold aura filled the hall like 1,000-year-old ice. Xinjian Gate. In the distance, strange mountains stood tall, green and steep, covered by clouds and mist. The continuous mountain peaks were dyed with gorgeous brilliance by the morning light. Near the transmission station, Sidu Miang had been talking with Li Shiran and Chu, making a few faces from time to time to make them happy. Li Shiran was gentle and polite. She smiled and said softly to Situ Muyang, Mr. Situ, thank you for taking care of us here. If we return 100 herbs in the future, we must invite you to visit us. Situ Muyang was a little embarrassed. He touched the back of his head, smiled, and said, It's nothing. I must do what young Marshal Uncle asked me to do. Xinjiang Gate is my home. You don't have to be polite to come to my home as guests. I'm just doing my duty as a host. Li Shiran was gentle and dignified. She looked into the distance from time to time, and there was a trace of anxiety on her gentle and beautiful face. Sita Muyang coughed and continued, It's just that this trip is short, so I can't show you around Xinjiang Gate. If you have a chance, Miss Li, you should come more often. Li Shiran immediately asked, Mr. Sidu was born in Xinjiang Gate, so you must be a disciple of Xinjiang Gate, right? Situ Muyang's bright and deep eyes suddenly flashed a trace of light. He said with a smile, No, I'm in my mother's sect, Xinjiang Gate. I came back more often after I grew up. When I was a child, I had been practicing hard in the sect. I didn't come out often. Hearing this, Li Shiran's nose twitched slightly. She pulled Chu, who was anxious, and said seriously, Chu, did you hear that? You and I should learn from young noble Sidu when we get there. Cultivate diligently so that we can avenge our tribe and kill Wang Chuanda with our own hands. Chu nodded slightly, frowned, and asked doubtfully, Brother Muyang, why hasn't Brother Su come back yet? How many days have passed? Situ Muyang's sword-like eyebrows slanted slightly, but he was not in a hurry at all. He patted Achu's shoulder and said, Achu, young Martial Granduncle has been through a lot. The Sacred Martial Assembly, the Chaos Realm, and so many twists and turns. Which one of those things is not as difficult as these? Young Martial Granduncle is still safe and sound. You don't have to worry. You don't understand. Other than my safety, I'm also worried about whether Big Brother Su is Grandpa. Chu looked worried. Li Shiran then gently tugged at the corner of Achu's clothes, indicating that he should stop talking. By the way, young noble Sidu, since you're not from Xinjiang Gate, why do you keep calling Big Brother Su young Martial Granduncle? Situ Muyang, whose eyes were clear, suddenly scratched the back of his head and said to Li Shiran, I didn't accept him before, but he has become our elder Su's disciple. According to seniority, he is even higher than my father. In addition, this guy's talent is simply abnormal, so I can only follow him and call him young Martial Granduncle. I got used to it. Puffed. There is such a complicated story. Ha! Achu and Li Shiran laughed. They asked a lot of questions about Su Yi's deeds along the way, as if they were listening to a story. The morning light shone, and the whole Xinjiang Gate was shrouded in a peaceful and warm golden light today. It was like a sacred heaven and earth, which made people yearn for it. 72 sword peaks stood tall in the clouds. At a glance, the towering mountains and precipitous ridges were filled with a vast expanse of mist. At this moment, the indistinct divine Sword Mountain Range was like a sleepy young man who had yet to wake up. The 36-sword peak towered into the clouds, like a divine sword standing between heaven and earth. It was majestic and imposing, and a divine power was emitted from it. Sitamuyang immediately recalled many memories in his mind. There was a slight fluctuation in his eyes, and he murmured in his heart, "I don't know how Elder Su will react when he knows that young martial granduncle is back. Alas, it's better not to let him know, so as not to be sad. Elder Su's life is hard enough." Thinking of the entanglement between Su, Yi, and Shunjian Gate, Sitamuyang's good mood immediately became heavy. This had long become a knot in his heart. If it was not untied, he would not be happy. The halo was accompanied by colorful light. Amidst the colorful light, a figure flew toward Sitamuyang like a ball of divine fire. Sitamuyang's mouth gradually pulled up, and he said to Li Shiran, "Miss Li, what did I say? Look over there." Looking in the direction of Sitamuyang, the two were pleasantly surprised. They raised their hands high and said to the flames in the sky, "Over here. Su-yi, over here. We're here." At this time, a huge black python was hanging in the forest. Its whole body was black, and the snake beast was as ferocious as a dragon. The scales all over its body were like dark green jade. Under the cover of the lush forest, it looked even more mysterious and fierce. It was lying on the treetop and taking a nap. The name Su immediately woke the giant python up. Its scarlet tongue was like a sharp arrow that kept shooting out. Its fierce eyes were like gems that shone in the dim light, and it opened its eyes wide. "He's back. I have to tell Miss Li." Its voice was like a dull clockwork. "This." A pair of black and bright wings stretched out slightly behind the giant snake, glowing with a crystal black light. Its tongue kept spitting out, and then it quickly swam towards one of the 72 sword peaks. Boom! A series of fiery red phantoms flashed across the sky and landed steadily near the teleportation battle like a big bird. Su-yi smiled faintly at the three of them. "Sorry to keep you waiting." No. It's the best result that Brother Su-yi can come back." Li Shiran could not hide the excitement on her pink cheeks. Achu was so excited that he could not speak. Last time when Su-yi left, Achu was still in a semi-coma. This time, he really saw the hero he had been looking up to for a long time. He pinched himself several times and then slapped himself a few times. Sitamuyang was also overjoyed and said, "Brother Achu, it's true. You're not dreaming." "Ha ha ha." They laughed, and the reunion made everyone's faces full of joy. After a while, Su-yi took 2 steps back and bowed deeply to Li Shiran and Achu. "Brother Su-yi, what are you doing?" Achu was flattered and puzzled. Li Shiran's eyes flashed with a glimmer of light, and her eyes were full of reverence. She said to Achu, "Achu, Grandpa found it." After that, her eyes were filled with tears. Achu woke up and said involuntarily, "Really? Is it true? Brother Su-yi, you found that thing?" Chapter 1577. Su-yi stood up. His eyes were clear and bright. He nodded slightly and said to the Li siblings with a serious expression, "I found the crimson water sky crystal, and I've also seen your grandfather's remnant soul and the legacy of your clan. In addition, the Holy Mountain has suffered a great loss this time, so I've avenged a little for you, to comfort the souls of your clan members in heaven." Su-yi's words made Li Shiran and the others extremely excited. Their eyes were filled with tears of excitement, and their hands were clenched tightly. With a slight smile, Su-yi took out a space bag and added, "By the way, all the soul-measuring heavenly crystals in the 100-her mountain are here. However, the crimson water sky crystal has already been refined by me. I hope you can understand this matter." Li Shiran and Ah-Chu looked at each other. Their eyes were full of splendor and joy. They bowed to Su-yi and kowtowed 3 times respectfully. "Clan leader Su-yi, from now on, we siblings will follow you wherever you go. We won't hesitate to do anything." Su-yi's expression suddenly changed. He helped the 2 of them up. Sitamuyang behind him was scratching his ears and cheeks, not knowing what was going on. Our Li clan's duty is to guard the heavenly crystal. We've been searching for the fated person for the heavenly crystal for hundreds of generations. Now that you've refined the crimson water sky crystal, Brother Su Yi, the Li clan's duty has been fulfilled. The Li clan was born for this, and it's only right that we die for it. The fated person we find will become our clan leader and lead the Li clan to glory again. Li Shiran explained with tears of sadness. Suddenly, Su Yi's thoughts were in a mess. He already had many titles: Tian Yao School's sect leader, Bawang Sect's sect leader, Divine Dragon Commander, and now the Li Clan sect leader. He was afraid that there would be too many things for him to do. Su Yi pondered for a while and made up his mind. I think I'd better forget it. The Li Clan should be shouldered by you and your brother. I'll give you all the soul-testing origin crystals in the 100 Her Mountain. After you go to the Imperial Palace, learn well. When the time comes, won't it be better to regroup and create another Li Clan? Li Shiran and Ah Chu both stepped back and waved their hands to refuse. No, no, no. The soul-testing crystal is a gift from the Sacred Mountain. It doesn't belong to our Li Clan. Since the Heaven Crystal has already fused with your body and the Sacred Mountain has recognized you as its master, we will naturally not take this soul-measuring crystal. Chu said sincerely, Big Brother Su Yi, you've already done so much for us. If you really don't want to be the Li Clan's lord, we can understand. But it's not right to take anything from you. No matter what they said, they refused to accept Su Yi's interspatial bag. Helpless, Su Yi could only keep it inside. I'll keep it for you in case you need it in the future. But in his heart, he thought that these two siblings were quite kind. If there was a chance in the future, it would be very good to let them join the Bawang sect or the Tian Yao school. Haha, you don't have to be so modest. How about this? Let's go to the Imperial Palace first. These two siblings are very anxious. Sita Muyang said, Why don't you go back to your sect? Why do you keep following me? Su Yi said in a deep voice. Sita Muyang had been following him all the time. Of course, he was very happy, but it didn't benefit him much in his pursuit of martial arts. Sita Muyang glanced at Li Shiran, and Li Shiran also gently turned her head to the side, her face blushing. Well, my sect also passes through Yinzhou. I'll go with you. Ah Chu and Su Yi's eyes suddenly had some understanding. With a slight smile, Su Yi waved his hand and said, That's fine. Let's find a remote place to do some things first. After going to Yinzhou, they wouldn't return to Zhongzhou for the time being. Before going to the Imperial Palace, Su Yi felt that it was better to do things locally. If he let the Li siblings give up on Zhongzhou, they could cultivate in peace in the Imperial Palace in the future. After a while, they reached the top of a remote mountain where they could see the Divine Sword Cliff. It was extremely steep, and the cliff was as sharp as a knife. The biting cold wind constantly blew on their bodies, causing their clothes to flutter. Junior Martial Uncle, don't keep us in suspense. Take it out quickly. Sita Muyang was looking forward to it. Su Yi's mouth slightly turned solemn. Suddenly, an ice-blue barrier opened. The three of them were stunned. The mysterious space spread out with a bang, and the violent spiritual energy of heaven and earth spewed out like a raging tide. Su Yi's figure suddenly flashed and disappeared. I haven't seen you for a few days, and this mysterious space has become much more violent. Sita Muyang was horrified and thought to himself, Bang! After a few breaths, Su Yi slowly walked out with a pitch-black figure in his hand. He threw the figure heavily on the ground and leaned against the cliff, dying. The person only left a fluttering left hand. His clothes were tattered and constantly emitted an incomparably rotten stench. His beard and hair had fallen off, and his face had collapsed. He was extremely ferocious, like a demon born from the ground. It was extremely terrifying. His voice was like gossamer, and it seemed that he had experienced extremely tragic, inhuman torture. Seeing this situation, Li Shiran's figure trembled slightly. She was afraid and unconsciously leaned against Sita Muyang and Ah Chu. She grabbed the corner of her clothes tightly and looked at Su Yi in confusion. Brother Su, who is this? There was no reason for Su Yi to suddenly pull out a monster to scare her. There must be a reason. This is Wang Chuanda. Su Yi's eyes were cold. What? The three of them exclaimed one after another. Li Shiran's eyes were filled with anger, and Ah Chu was even more furious and rushed forward. Ah Chu summoned up her courage and quietly lifted Wang Chuanda's scattered hair. After careful identification, she said in a trembling voice because of anger, "It's him. It's him. Sister. This is that old bastard." Hearing Ah Chu's confirmation, Li Shiran's eyes were suddenly filled with tears because of excitement. She looked at Su Yi, full of emotions. Slap. A slap fell heavily on Wang Chuanda's bloody face. "It's all because of you, bad guy. You killed Grandpa. You killed all of us." Ah Chu looked at the half-dead Wang Chuanda in front of her in exasperation. All her anger and hatred surged up, and she started to punch and kick Wang Chuanda. "I'll kill you. This kind of person should die a horrible death." After saying that, Ah Chu picked up a few huge stones from the side and threw them at Wang Chuanda. However, the strength of the Origin Emperor realm was still there. The huge stones smashed and bounced back, almost hitting Ah Chu herself. Su Yi patted Ah Chu's shoulder gently, motioning her to calm down a little, and said, "This person also has a blood feud with me. I have already resolved the hatred in my heart, but he is the murderer who killed your loved ones after all. You decide how to deal with him." "Brother Su Yi, thank you. Thank you for catching the murderer for us. My brother, and I really don't know when we can kill our enemy." Li Shiran's eyes were filled with tears, and she sobbed silently. The terrifying face that would wake up every night was lying on the ground and being ravaged by her today. This was all thanks to Su Yi. Chapter 1578. Sita was also indignant. He handed the long sword in his hand to Li Shiran and said, "Miss Li, this sword is for you. Stab this bastard's heart directly. This old man, junior martial uncle, has already crippled him. Don't be afraid. He won't resist." "Don't." Wang Chuanda, whose mouth was full of blood, couldn't say anything. His blood-stained eyes stared blankly at Li Shiran. Li Shiran held the long sword in her hand and kept trembling. She said in a trembling voice, I can't do it." His cheeks were already covered with bloodstains. Wang Chuanda's left hand was on the ground, and he said like a lamp that had run out of oil, "Miss, do me a favor. They are both great holy sons." Li Shiran pursed her lips tightly. When she heard the words "great holy son," the trembling tip of the sword immediately fell down. Li Shiran still couldn't do it. She turned around with tears in her eyes and said to Su Yi, "Brother Su, I'm sorry. I can't do it. I'll do it. I'll kill this old bastard." Ah Chu wanted to take the sword hilt from Li Shiran's hand. In the blink of an eye, Wang Chuanda rushed towards Li Shiran like a hungry tiger, pouncing on its prey. "Su Yi, since you're going to die anyway, you might as well drag her down with you. I'll make you restless for the rest of your life." Miss Li, Situ Muyang's eyes widened in anger. How could he make it in time? "Sister." Ah Chu was also panicking. Boom! An icy blue water, elemental energy, suddenly appeared in the air. Before Wang Chuanda could touch Su Yi's figure, he had already turned into an afterimage and rushed to Li Shiran's side, pushing her to the side heavily. With a light tap of his feet and a slight turn of his body, Wang Chuanda completely missed his target. The strong wind whistled over the 100-feet cliff. Wang Chuanda fell directly off the cliff like a bird with a broken string. Su Yi, I won't let you go even if I become a ghost." Within the 100-feet cliff, Wang Chuanda's roar quickly dissipated in the whistling sound like the whimper of an evil ghost. The enemy of many years turned into the debris of the valley, just like that. Woo woo woo. Li Shiran suddenly felt a kind of release and relief in her heart. She turned around and threw herself into the arms of Situ Muyang, who was nearby, and cried. Ah Chu also had tears in her eyes and gently wiped them clean. "I want to become stronger. I want everyone in the sacred mountain to die. Li Zhangchu, will burn down your foundation one day." Ah Chu roared at the cliff like a volcanic eruption. Su Yi then patted Ah Chu's shoulder gently. His eyes were full of gratification and appreciation. He laughed and said, "Good boy, you were a hero when you were alive and a hero when you died. I will go through all kinds of difficulties and dangers, and I will destroy the blood feud." Achu wiped away his tears, and his eyes were full of determination. After taking revenge, Achu's temperament seemed to become awe-inspiring for no reason, and he became much more mature in an instant. With such a change, Su-yi was naturally overjoyed. After experiencing so many things, the deep hatred had always been Su-yi's unremitting motivation. But at the same time, being able to help and protect his people and making them happy was the best result that Su-yi wanted to pursue. "Miss Sharan, don't cry. Let's get ready to go." Su-yi smiled slightly and looked at Li Shiran. Li Shiran knew that she had lost her composure. She jumped out of Situ Muyang's arms and responded with a shy face. "Okay, big brother Su-yi, let's go." Just as Su-yi turned around and was about to leave, a gust of wind whistled behind him. Su-yi spread out his spiritual sense, and the Origin Supreme technique wrapped the three of them like a wave, protecting them heavily. "Ooh!" Su-yi shouted angrily, and his eyes flowed out like swords. In the void behind him, a black vortex-like storm surged. In the storm, a black-scaled python was chewing a meat-like object in its mouth. Its pair of fierce eyes were like copper bells, exuding a mysterious light. "It's Wang Chuanda." There was a pair of wings on its back that kept circling, causing the hurricane in the mountains to become even more violent. The sound of crunching was like minced meat, which was very shocking. Li Shiran and Chu had never seen such a scene. Seeing the minced Wang Chuanda being swallowed into the python's stomach, and the minced meat was thrown all over the cliff, they immediately lay on the cliff and began to vomit. "Su-yi, long time no see." A cold and weak voice came out. In the wings, a young girl about the same age as Su-yi rose up and stepped on the python's head. She stood proudly with an extraordinary temperament. The young girl's black hair was like a waterfall, her eyes were as clear as water, and her red lips were extremely delicate. She was like a banished immortal, adding a bit of wild temperament. She was cold and proud, with a kind of moving beauty. Her crescent eyebrows were slightly curved, and there was a trace of excitement between her eyebrows. "Seen your sister Muyao," Sita Muyang said in surprise. "You, Su-yi turned to look at Sita Muyang. It's not me. Sita Muyang immediately turned to Su-yi and explained. Li Shiran also helped to explain. Su-yi's return. Sita Muyang really didn't tell anyone. Su-yi gently raised his hand and walked to the edge of the cliff. His robe fluttered, and the Origin Supreme technique suddenly activated. His temperament suddenly changed, and his fighting spirit was surging. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised. Boom! The nine-hell snake trembled, as if it had seen the supreme of the demon race. It immediately shouted, "I'm sorry. I told Miss. Little Mo, what's wrong with you?" Muyao was very puzzled. Even if Su-yi's cultivation was already very strong as a demon race cub, the nine hell snakes shouldn't be so afraid. Su-yi's body exuded a majestic pressure like a 1,000-year-old mountain. It pressed down on the nine hell snake's body, causing it to tremble. It almost shook Muyao off. Fortunately, Su-yi restrained his aura in time, and everything returned to normal. You've actually reached this point. Muyao's eyes were filled with shock. Compared to the time after the Sacred Martial Arts Assembly, Su-yi's strength had risen to a whole new level. He was incomparably powerful, but the space between his brows had become even more steady and calm. She could faintly see the great spirit of a great master. This made Muyao, who had always been arrogant and unyielding to the heavens and earth, once again feel the powerlessness she felt during the myriad sword assembly. What's said in the sect is true. You've really made a name for yourself. Muyao muttered to herself, looking at Su-yi's eyes slightly fluctuating. Su-yi smiled slightly, raised his eyes, and said, "It seems that you've inquired a lot about me. Miss Muyao?" "Bah, You speak as if anyone is willing to inquire about your affairs. Bastard can cause a bunch of bastards wherever they go. Mu Yao's crescent brows immediately furrowed as she spoke softly. Say it. Why are you looking for me? I don't remember you being so good to me. Su, he said calmly. You're talking nonsense. Forget it. Let me ask you, when you return to Xinjiang Gate, why didn't you go and see Elder Su? He has been missing you for so many days, and so are your fellow disciples. Chapter 1579. After saying that, Mu Yao pursed her lips tightly. It seemed that there were some words that were inconvenient to say in front of so many people. Her face was flushed. Senior and junior brothers? Does Yinling Feng count? Su Yi sneered. Xinjiang Gate could be said to be the place where he had the most feelings outside of Man City. However, this place also hurt him the most. Sigh. Of course not. If it weren't for the protection of the elders, we wouldn't have bothered with this person. It is said that he has also cultivated the Devil Sword principle. If you meet him in the future, be careful. Su Yi's brows relaxed slightly. Seeing Mu Yao again, it seemed that Mu Yao wasn't as overbearing as before. The wind from the peak of the mountain fluttered her silky hair, giving her an extreme sense of beauty. Okay, I know. Yinling Feng, I hope you don't meet me. Even if your grand elder comes, he won't be able to save you. Su Yi sneered in his heart. Mu Yao looked at Su Yi. She didn't know what to say. The nine-hell snake looked at Su Yi as if he was a monster. The light in his eyes dimmed. Su Yi said, Are you done? I'll leave first. I'll come and find you in the future. Su Yi turned and walked towards the three people. Find me? Hearing that, Mu Yao's heart was timid. She directly raised her hand to Su Yi and said, Wait, there's one more thing. Elder Su asked me to bring it to you. What? Su Yi said. After you left, Elder Su's mood was not very good. One day, he came to talk to Master to ease his mood. I also heard the following words. Mu Yao frowned slightly and imitated Elder Su's tone. Su Yi, this brat, I'm really happy that he's doing so well outside. However, I didn't teach him enough at that time. Su Yi can comprehend sword intent and use it to such an extent. He's really a good seedling. I'm not worried that he's being chased by the Holy Mountain. He doesn't even have a sense of existence. He doesn't deserve to be called my disciple. Su Yi's heart was in turmoil. He felt a sense of pride. He was happy that he didn't embarrass Elder Su. Then he heard Mu Yao say, Elder Su told Master that he was worried that you would blindly pursue speed and not pay attention to the foundation. He knows that if you can enter the Heavenly Palace, there's a place where you can improve your understanding of swords and sabers. If the headquarters doesn't allow you to enter, he will bring you to try. Finally, he said, no matter how powerful the martial arts technique, martial art is edgeless. The great Tao of the great Tao. You must remember this. Thump. Su Yi's heart suddenly jumped. The image of Elder Su's short figure and his slightly wrinkled face appeared in his mind. A lustrous feeling spread to his eyes. Su Yi's face darkened. He turned around and whispered, Mu Yao, if you meet Elder Su, please tell him that this disciple has learned. Su Yi's slightly sad voice made the other three look at him. They didn't dare to speak again. Su Yi lowered his head and whispered, Let's go. Before he left, Su Yi still left behind a sentence, saying softly, Mu Yao, thank you. Soon after, the three of them flew towards the teleportation station. Only Mu Yao, whose moon-like eyes were surging, was left standing proudly in the wind. Who would have known that the days at Xinjiang Gate might be the happiest and most carefree days of Su Yi's life? Who would have known that Su Yi and Xinjiang Gate would have all kinds of relations in the future? The 36th Sword Peak. The peak was hidden, and the cold mountain ranges were stacked. The 36 sword edges, shrouded in mist, were like the divine swords of heaven and earth that were sheathed. An incomparably sharp spiritual energy of heaven and earth was about to surge out at any time. In a sword hut, an old man the size of an 8 or 9-year-old child was sitting cross-legged in meditation. He was the sword Yama of Xinjiang Gate, Suruga. Suruga's body was surrounded by incomparably sharp sword waves. Layer upon layer, It was like a monstrous sword formation that came from heaven and earth. Countless divine weapons were suspended in the air. The sword radiance surged, and the radiance was as bright as the sunset. It constantly buzzed on the surrounding wooden shelves. Suruga's wrinkled face seemed to have sensed some changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. His eyebrows gradually furrowed. Since this morning, Suruga had been restless during his cultivation. There was no time for him to concentrate. Then, Suruga opened his slightly yellow eyes, and a sharp light flashed. The burning sandalwood incense in the air rose in spirals. Suddenly, it was extinguished by a gust of wind. "Umph," Suruga said angrily in a deep voice. "Stinking brat, did you not enter the house 3 times? If you don't bring me a good ranking in the Tianfeng battle, I will deal with you personally." Suruga's robe shook, and the sword aura around him was incomparably sharp. With 2 swishing sounds, all the incense tables and candlesticks in the small room were extinguished. Waves of black smoke floated in the air. Borrowing the direct sunlight from outside, Suruga, who was cultivating in the corner, revealed a gratified smile on his face. On the other side, between the mountains, the clear lake reflected the incomparably blue sky. Mu Yao was doing her makeup near the lake. Her bright eyes were as clear as water, and the light around her was sparkling and translucent. Lying on the side was the 9 hell snake that had just reported. Its body was filled with a faint golden color, and its sparkling and translucent jade-like eyes blinked. It was very lively. Looking at the lake, Mu Yao was slightly dazed. She intimately stroked the scales of the 9 hell snake and thought about what Su Yi had said. He said that he would come to find me again? Did he come specifically to find me? Little Amo, can you guess what it is about? The 9 hell snake kept flicking its tongue into the air, and its fierce eyes revealed a trace of astonishment and vigilance as it spoke. "Miss, Su Yi is much stronger than the last time we separated. I can feel that he has reached another level. It's better that you don't have anything to do with him." Mu Yao frowned, and her snow-white hands held her chin again as she murmured, "Little Amo, he seems to have become less annoying. Why did I feel very sad when I heard that he was dead, but I can't help but feel happy when I see him today? What is the reason for this?" The 9 hell snake rolled its eyes, lowered its head, and leaned against the edge of the pool. It quietly washed the water and did not want to pay attention to Mu Yao. Swish! Mu Yao's expression was solemn as her brows furrowed slightly. She stood up and brandished the long sword in her hand again. A vast sword light was displayed in the air once more. A 20-year-old 7th-level Origin Void Realm was already formidable to the extreme. Compared to Shen Mo, Lu Xier, and the others that Su Yi had faced before, they were much older and had the support of their families. However, Mu Yao was able to attain such a profound cultivation base at the age of 20 by herself. She was truly one of the top geniuses in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. Chapter 1580. Roar, roar. Mu Yao's sword flickered, and the sword shadows that filled the sky were tightly controlled by her. Her body exuded an incomparably powerful aura. Origin Qi surged from the soles of her feet, and her beautiful figure soared into the sky like a swallow. A golden light filled the sky, and she looked like a fairy that had descended into the mortal world. She was absolutely beautiful. Gently wiping the sweat off her chin, Mu Yao thought of Su Yi's slender but extremely tall figure and the last words he left behind. Her heart was filled with emotions. Looks like that annoying fellow still has feelings for the Xinjiang Gate. No matter what reason he has for coming to find me in the future, I can't be worse than him. I've said it before, I will defeat him. When she thought of this, Mu Yao Yu's eyes moved. There was a slight mist rising from her face. The water was sparkling, and the world was long, and Mu Yao was smiling sweetly. Hiss, hiss. Let's go. The air here is a little sour. It's better to eat some small beasts or mice. The 9 netherworld snake flicked its scarlet tongue, and its soft body wriggled between the grass. It didn't say anything to Mu Yao and directly swam away, leaving behind a long gully. The Cloud Prefecture was also one of the 6 continents, 3 prefectures, and 1 ocean. Compared to the Central Prefecture, the Cloud Prefecture was much smaller, but because of the natural essence and the alternation of the sun and the moon, many places in the Cloud Prefecture were rich in natural powers and natural products. At the same time, because of its remote location and high geographical location, the Cloud Continent had many dangerous places and natural secret realms. Thus, the Cloud Continent had always been a place for secluded experts and top-notch rogue cultivators to cultivate. It had the beautiful title of Cloud Continent, Heaven on Earth. Furthermore, the barbaric beasts here were rare and had existed for a long time. Thus, compared to the Chaos region and the barbaric demon forest, the barbaric beasts here were superior in terms of quality. Their battle strength was extremely high, and their ferocity far surpassed those of the same level. Compared to the Chaos region, where there were no rules and no ranks, the Cloud region was truly a good place to live in seclusion and cultivate. In fact, there were even some areas in the depths of the Cloud Prefecture that had never been explored by anyone. Rumor had it that there were countless treasures and spirit plants growing everywhere. It had even become a paradise for mercenary groups to hunt for treasures and third-party thugs. Among them, the Immeasurable House was the strongest force in Yinzhou. It had been famous for a long time and belonged to 1 mountain, 2 churches, 3 sects, and 4 houses. However, no one had mentioned that the Heavenly Palace's headquarters was also in the Cloud Province. But thinking about it, the fact that the Heavenly Palace's headquarters was located in the Cloud Province was in line with the personalities of those transcendent alchemists and refiners who had no desires. After 2 days of teleportation, Su, Yi, and the others finally arrived at the boundary of the Cloud region after 2 transits from the Central region to the Central region. Young Martial Uncle, are the 2 disciples of the Holy Mountain we met at the Xinjiang Gate reliable? Situ Muyang asked with a heavy expression. Su Yi, on the other hand, had a smile on his face. It turned out that after separating from Mu Yao and preparing to teleport, he really did run into Sun Hao and Zhang Dan, who had come to the Xinjiang Gate to wait for Su Yi. As soon as the 2 of them saw Su Yi, they fell to their knees. Without any background, even if they had the talent of a second-rate sect, they wouldn't be chosen by the Holy Mountain. They might as well follow Su Yi and do something big. With such loyal people, Su Yi was naturally happy to accept them. So, he arranged for them to find the Shadow Hall disciples scattered across the Central Continent and have them bring Sun Hao and Zhang Dan back to the Chaos region to join the Bawang sect. It could be considered a wonderful thing. Therefore, Su Yi's mood gradually improved along the way. He killed Wang Chuanda, destroyed the 100 Herb College, and poached 2 small corners. He was very happy along the way. A few of them talked and laughed. Sita Muyang kept teasing with Shiran, while Su Yi and Ah Chu made fun of them. In the end, the few of them arrived at the gate of a city without much effort. There were a few gilded words on the plaque, Suyun County. The momentum was grand and heroic, and there was a vague feeling that it could swallow mountains and rivers and stand alone from the world. Su Yi carefully looked at the words of Suyun County. It seemed to contain the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. It was a kind of heavenly power that could grasp the sun and moon, capture the firmament, and defy the universe. It was like a wave, and it was like a martial artist imparting a skill. It instantly turned into a stream of light and rushed into Su Yi's glabella. Su Yi could feel an extremely thick spiritual chi of heaven and earth rushing into his meridians and merging with the great void spirit sea. His whole body, including his breathing, became extremely comfortable. Suddenly, the tiredness of the journey was swept away. Su Yi squinted his eyes and said loudly, "The Ziyun celestial cave is locked deep in the clouds, and there are people in the cave who do not know." Suddenly I, Heen Xin, laughed at my white-haired old mortal world. After reciting the poem, Su Yi knew that these words must have been carved by an absolute powerhouse. The spiritual energy in it made his demon soul of Tianyuan tremble. Suayin County is indeed a good name. Sui could not help but praise. Situ Muyang Li Shiran, and Ah Chu turned their heads at the same time. Their eyes were immediately filled with endless reverence. Little Uncle Master, I didn't expect you to be a scholar. Yes, yes, Brother Su, you are so literary. Su, he laughed softly. He was slightly embarrassed. He waved his hand and said, No, no, I just suddenly thought of these words. I just felt it. The momentum is majestic. The strokes are powerful. Muyang, is this Soyin County a nearby city? Su Yi remembered that this was also the path that Situ Muyang had to pass through to return to the sect. He immediately asked. Situ Muyang raised his hand and touched his chin. He said, Well, this Soyin County is actually not that big, but it is not that small either. However, it has always been inconspicuous in the Yunzhou. At best, it is a second-class city, which can't even be compared to the 9-star city. It is neither a transportation hub nor a place with abundant resources. But the strange thing is that there have always been many gatherings of refiners and alchemists here. Auctions, treasure appraisals, and treasure fights are common here. Hearing this, Su Yi's eyes darkened slightly. He thought, if only Yunjing was here. There are so many treasures here. Originally, Su Yi felt that he was only ashamed of Ling Qinxue. She had saved him many times. In the Nine Spirits clan, she had finally fallen in love with him, and their souls were compatible. Although they had never revealed their feelings to each other, they had the same thoughts. It could be said that in this world, if one were to pick the person who understood him the most, it would undoubtedly be Ling Qinxue. Where is Yunjing? Su, he asked himself in his heart. In front of Yunjing, she was like an elf that had fallen into the mortal world when she was mischievous. However, the sadness and loneliness hidden in her heart made Su Yi understand that she was also as fragile as glass. Suddenly, like a spring dream, Yunjing had unknowingly planted a seed in Su Yi's heart. In the end, it took root and sprouted in the charming cave, blossoming and bearing fruit. The whole mountain was filled with gorgeous scenery. Chapter 1581. Looking at the different buildings in front of him, Su Yi thought to himself, I'd better strengthen myself first. If I'm not strong enough, I can't save Qing in Qinshua's body. Then he looked up and said to the three of them, Let's go. You've worked hard these 2 days. Let's go and see the fun in Yunzhou. As soon as they entered the city, the spiritual energy that soared into the sky swept over them. From the buildings to the clothing, from the peddlers' shouts to the things they were selling, they were all poles apart from the style of the central province. A wave of freshness colored everyone. Looking left and right, everyone's face was filled with curiosity. Wow, Brother Su, this place is so fun. Yes, I haven't seen so many things before. Between the carved beams and painted rafters, there was a grand and unrestrained momentum. Between the beams and pillars, there was a faint brilliance flowing, and the silver-white light was elegant and agile like clouds and mist. Yunzhou's floating silver wood. Su Yi's mouth slightly outlined a smile. Su Yi had seen this thing in the 9-star valley before. Even the cloud region, which was famous for its dangers, was hidden 10,000 meters below the Broken Sword Sea. He didn't expect that even an ordinary house here would be built with the cloud region's floating silver wood. It seemed that this place wasn't simple. There were dangers everywhere. This small Suyin County is really unusual. Su Yi sighed in his heart. The world was so big. Roughly counting, this was the 3rd continent he had been to. If he had time, when he didn't have any trivial matters to attend to, and when he didn't have any worries, he could travel the world with a celestial companion. Or perhaps he could explore Yunzhou. That would be a wonderful thing. What a pity. Su Yi thought that if Merciless West was here, she would tell him a lot of wonderful experiences and life's wonderful words. An inconspicuous county had a lot of floating silver wood. The people on the street were not all people who knew the value of floating silver wood. At this time, in the distant crowd, 2 figures had run away like the wind. Sister, Brother Su, I'll go over there and have a look. See you later. Chu's eyes were full of excitement. In this place, they were complete outsiders. Li Shiran was suddenly a little panicked. Chu, don't run around. Look at you. Don't be presumptuous. Li Ran scolded from behind. Situ Muyang, who ran into the crowd with Ah Chu, turned around and smiled at Li Ran. Miss Ran, I'm here. It'll be fine. Sui also smiled at the side without saying a word. Everyone was a little tired after the long journey. Now that they finally arrived at a place where they could rest, it was only right for them to relax a little. Let them go. Only by seeing more and traveling more can one grow into a man. Li Ran smiled softly, nodded slowly to Sui, and said softly, Big brother Su, if Ah Chu can have half of your achievements, I will be satisfied. Your talent is no less than Ah Chu's. You should also work hard to become a female sole controller of the Leaf family. Su Yi's eyes shone with encouragement. Immediately, Li Ran looked expectant and encouraged as she replied, Okay, but Yunzhou is not small. I still don't know where the headquarters of the Heavenly Command Palace is located. Speaking of the headquarters of the Heavenly Command Palace, Su Yi had heard from Deputy Palace Master Wan Lan that with the half-step heaven-grade badge of the Heavenly Command Palace, there would naturally be someone to pick him up when he arrived in Yunzhou. However, Su Yi's heart and soul had not sensed it until now, which was quite strange. The Heavenly Command Palace is cold and arrogant. They don't have much involvement with the secular world. The location of their headquarters must not be easy to find. It's understandable. As Sui spoke to Li Ran, his mind was also constantly probing for clues. It seems to be more lively in front. Big brother Su, let's go and have a look. Li Ran pointed to the crowd in front of them, and all her thoughts were diverted. When they got closer, they found that Situ Muyang and Ah Chu were among them. Su Yi frowned slightly, and suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. There was a 5-colored primordial stone as tall as a person standing on the field, releasing a dense light. It was like a wave of air that constantly repelled the energy light waves. The onlookers' faces suddenly changed. Old Master, is it true that you said you can test my soul and give me a Taoist instrument? Ah Chu smiled and crossed her hands with confidence. Ah Chu, Li Ran's eyes flashed with anxiety. There was no free lunch in the world. On the opposite side, a thin and lean old man with sunken eyes and a goatee fluttering in the wind glanced at Ah Chu, and then looked around the audience and said, Yes, if anyone can light up all 7 of my best soul-testing primordial stones of red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple, I will give him the mystic thunder compliance pagoda that I have recently cultivated. Boom! As soon as he took it out, a small pagoda-shaped Taoist instrument appeared in the old man's palm. It had a quiet aura and light diffused out. Spiritual chi soared into the sky with a terrifying vortex aura that rushed into the entire small encirclement. Wow, treasures! The amount of spiritual chi here is simply too powerful. I think it's not only at the level of a Taoist instrument, but also at the high level of a Taoist instrument. The surrounding people were some rogue cultivators, alchemists, and refiners. At this time, when they saw the pagoda in the old man's hand, they couldn't stop discussing and talking at the same time like boiling water. Fellow Taoists, fellow artifact refiners. This time, we came to this small lock cloud county with the intention of communication. If anyone feels that their soul talent is good, you can come to my best soul-testing primordial stone to ask for advice. Of course, it's not free. The qualification to be tested is a soul-testing primordial stone. Wow, this is too expensive. Forget it. Let's go. It's not like we haven't tested our talent before. How can we carry the soul-testing primordial stone with us? Let's go. We can't afford that Taoist instrument. When they heard the old man say such a price, everyone present felt a little guilty and turned around to leave. The soul-testing primordial stone was expensive. It was not worth using it to test their soul talent that had already been tested. Ahem. The old man cleared his throat. Actually, when the old man saw that everyone was about to leave, he became anxious, his beard fluttered, and he immediately shouted, Huh? Everyone turned around, thinking that there was something else. I'm Elder Sun Hun of the Imperial Palace. When we leave the palace, We use this soul-testing primordial stone to collect the best disciples in the world with the best soul quality and bring them to the headquarters of the Imperial Palace. You all said that the headquarters of the Imperial Palace is in Cloud State. Do you know where it is? Imperial Palace. In the world of refiners, it's a sacred place. Those who come to Cloud State are usually here to seek refuge with the Imperial Palace. Hearing the old man's words, everyone's eyes lit up. They were eager to try, and they groped up and down, trying to find a soul-testing primordial stone. This old man's skill of swindling is not bad. Suyi's face was cold, and he sneered in his heart. What? Brother Su, is that old man a swindler? Li Ran couldn't believe it. Please remember the domain name of this book.com. Wonderful book mobile version website.com. Chapter 1582. Su Yi touched his chin and said faintly, "The Taoist item is fake. As for the soul-testing crystal, its aura is similar to the one I found. But is there really such a top-grade crystal? And it's on the street? I don't believe it. Not to mention Tao artifacts. Su even had sacred artifacts. Ever since he started cultivating, he had touched at least hundreds of thousands of weapons and magic artifacts, and thousands of Tao artifacts. Whether it was a Tao artifact or not, he could tell at a glance. The soul-testing crystal of the 100-herb sacred mountain for hundreds of thousands of years was just like this. How could this old man casually take out a top-grade soul-testing crystal? Suyi's heart was full of doubts. Thump, thump. Sita Muyang and Ah Chu ran over excitedly. Sita Muyang and Ah Chu looked at Su Yi with longing eyes. You really want to go? Su Yi said with a smile. Yes, yes. The two nodded like chickens pecking at rice. Their eyes were full of excitement and excitement. With a helpless smile, Su Yi took out 2 soul-testing crystals from his interspatial bag and handed them to the two. He said, Go and have fun. Don't worry about the result. Brother Su said that the old man is a liar. Let's not waste our time, Li Shiran said. Ah Chu and Sita Muyang were a little stunned. They looked confused and said, No way. I think that old man is quite powerful. Let's go and have a look first. If it's fake, we'll beat him up on the spot. Sita Muyang took the crystal and walked into the crowd again with Ah Chu. On the field, the old man stroked his beard and narrowed his eyes. The tower in his hand was constantly spinning around his body. The gorgeous light was as dazzling as a golden rainbow. Who wants to be the first? The old man whispered. Me, with a dull voice. A tall man in a long robe with an unprepossessing face full of determination took out a soul-testing crystal and handed it to the old man. A prodigy of soul. Not bad. Su Yi sensed with his Tianyuan demon soul and could feel that the quality of the man's soul was quite high. Place your hand on it and don't obstruct it. Channel your spiritual energy in bit by bit. I don't need you to tell me that. I know how to. The man grunted and shook off the old man's hand. His temper was very fiery. He directly walked to the front of the soul-measuring crystal and placed his hand on it. Immediately, the rainbow-colored origin chi radiance that covered the sky continued to extending out and circling around the man, producing the sonorous sound of wind and thunder. Who? The whistling light from the soul-measuring crystal was like a waterfall, and the surrounding space suddenly distorted. Low sonic booms were constantly transmitted through the void, and under the invisible pressure, everyone held their breaths. Boom! Finally, the 7-colored light returned to the soul-measuring crystal. The light continued to rise and fall until it finally stopped at the green horizontal bar. There was no more movement. The old man's eyes widened slightly. He raised his head and said, King, great talent. You may leave. The irascible man flicked his sleeves and walked out of the crowd. He scratched the back of his head and frowned. That's impossible. Why am I only a king-grade talent? You've all tried the soul-measuring crystal, but this is the best soul-measuring crystal. It can give you a king-grade talent, but you're still not satisfied. You're simply greedy. Who else is next? I'll give a try. Ah Chu was eager to try and stared at the old man. When he walked forward, When the others saw Ah Chu coming up, they all roared with laughter and said to him, "Little brat, how old are you? And MBS? Huh, why can't I feel your cultivation? Young man, are you also a refiner? Or an alchemist? Or a fart refiner?" When Situmuyong heard this, he frowned and shouted angrily at the crowd. "What are you laughing at? It's not about age to be ambitious. Humph, I'll make your mouse fall to the ground later." Ah Chu was furious. Li Shiran, who was outside the crowd, shook her head and smiled. "These two guys are really stubborn. They're not convinced at all." Whoosh! At this moment, 3 people in light blue brocade robes floated down from the sky and landed in the crowd like flying immortals. When the old man saw the 3 of them, his face immediately changed, and his expression became a little unnatural. Su Yi's brows furrowed as he thought to himself, "These 3 have some skills." "Stand down." It was a handsome and elegant young man in his early 20s. His hair was slanted to his temples, like an immortal in a painting. There was a sense of arrogance between his eyebrows. His jade-like face immediately intoxicated all the cultivators of the opposite sex. The 2 cultivators behind him had solemn faces. Their cold aura spread across the sky. Their bulging muscles had a dark luster under the sun. They were obviously martial artists. "So handsome. Is he from the Infinite Sect? Look at his clothes. This is the territory of the Infinite Sect." Su Yi heard the whispers of the people around him and frowned slightly. These people from the Infinite Sect didn't seem to have good intentions. The 2 cultivators behind him had light auras, and their combat strength wasn't ordinary. They were about the 6th level of the Origin Emperor realm. The young man in front had a lower cultivation, but he was also at the half-step Origin Emperor realm. At first glance, he was also an extraordinary existence in the Infinite Sect. "Get lost, all of you." The 2 cultivators looked ferocious. The onlookers sucked in a breath of cold air one after another. Some who were afraid of trouble walked away directly. Immediately, the 2 tall and mighty attendants said to the young man in every possible way, Young master, you can begin." The young man didn't answer. He stared straight at Situmuyong and Ah Chu, wondering why they hadn't left yet. "I asked you 2 to get lost. Did I give you 2 little faces?" The attendants released a beam of Origin Chi light. Immediately, a mountain-like pressure rushed over, and everyone felt a chill down their spines. When Ah Chu was about to speak, Situmuyong stopped her and said, "Do you understand that it's first come, first served? Is it the style of the Infinite Sect to bully others?" Li Shiran grabbed the corner of her clothes tightly. Su Yi had already begun to circulate the Origin Supreme technique in his body. His eyes emitted a cold light. "Kid, what did you say?" The young man thought he had heard wrongly and asked Situmuyong. Immediately, a ball of anger burned in Situmuyong's chest. He shouted angrily, "I said, first come, first served. Do you want me to teach you? You have guts." The young man squinted his eyes and smiled. "Kid, I think you're really stupid." The 2 cultivators behind him suddenly rushed forward. An incomparably majestic force directly pressed on Situmuyong's shoulder. Their sword-like gazes could cut him apart in a matter of minutes. Situmuyong's expression brightened, and he wasn't afraid at all. The attendants were even angrier. They flew in front of him, and a huge palm fell. "You don't know the immensity of heaven and earth." Die. Bang. A palm print that filled the sky blasted down. See, he immediately felt a burst of numbness. His facial muscles trembled, and he quickly closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes, Su Yi stood in front of him. His tall and straight figure was like a god descending to the mortal world. Majestic Origin Chi of fire attribute spewed out from his palm and wrapped around the big palm print like a dragon. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1583. Hiss. In the air, water vapor filled the air. The 2 energies collided in the air and exploded. The violent explosion filled the world with flying energy threads. "Who is it?" The 2 cultivators looked at Su Yi in horror. The young man in front of them was about 17 or 18 years old. He actually blocked their attacks. He looked angry. He cupped his hands and said softly to the young man, "The Infinity Sect is very powerful. You won't fight with a kid, right? If you're really talented, why are you in such a hurry?" Looking at the majestic Su-Yi with his fluttering robe, the young man pondered for a while. Then, he waved his fan and said angrily, "Okay, let's see what you can do. Achu, go ahead. I believe you can do it." He had once probed Achu's soul quality with the heavenly origin demon soul. It was extraordinary to be able to withstand the spiritual liquid's energy with such strong perseverance. "Okay, Brother Su." Achu nodded heavily. He glanced at the young man in the brocade robe and walked up casually. "Hey." When the old man was about to stop Achu, Su-Yi and the young man in the brocade robe glared at him at the same time. The old man's eyes flickered and he stopped talking. There was a look of surprise in Achu's eyes. She placed her hands on the top-grade, soul-testing crystal, and a 5-color divine light shot up into the sky like a dragon. Immediately, the world was filled with the roar of a fierce beast. Roar! The dragon's roar shook the sky. The golden light was dazzling. Su-Yi smiled and thought, the quality of Achu's soul is indeed amazing. The Li family's attainments in the soul will definitely make the heavenly palace look at them with new eyes. This trip to Yunzhou is really worth it. The monstrous waves mixed with the gathering dark clouds. Suddenly, the entire void was extremely dark. The wind and thunder were sonorous, and lightning flashed and thunder rumbled. Strange phenomenon. This kid actually has such a level of soul. The onlookers were all dumbfounded. Their eyes were fixed on the strange phenomenon in the sky, not daring to move half a millimeter and not daring to breathe loudly. After a period of time, the entire world suddenly cleared up. The dark clouds dispersed, and the light of the top-grade soul measuring origin crystal flickered indeterminately and pulsed abnormally violently. Achu's expression changed slightly. She wanted to use her soul power to suppress it, but she seemed to have suffered an even more terrifying rebound force. Large beads of sweat gradually dripped down from her chin. "Something is wrong." Su-Yi frowned. He walked to Achu and looked at her with concern. "Chu, what's wrong?" Chu, who was fully infused, frowned and did not answer. Su-Yi immediately activated the heavenly origin ancient scripture. Like a gust of wind, a soul energy that seemed to have transcended the heavens and earth immediately enveloped Chu's body. There's actually another soul energy suppressing Chu's soul energy. It's extremely powerful. Su-Yi frowned. Immediately, Su-Yi activated the primordial origin supreme art. It was as if he had broken through a bottleneck. His primordial chi surged like a 1,000-year-old mountain, crushing that wave of energy. Bang! The energy around her body swept out and shattered the space ripples. Achu immediately felt a lot more relaxed. With a roar, her soul energy was like a water pump, directly dispersing the entire dark clouds. The dark clouds that filled the sky suddenly dispersed, and the scattered golden light was incomparably dazzling. A pillar of light soared into the sky, and above the dense void, there was a sudden rumbling sound. The 7-colored light finally reached the purple light. When it landed on the purple horizontal bar, it emitted an extremely dazzling light. A boundless aura suddenly spread out. Seeing the dense fog that covered the sky and the light dissipating in an instant and the space flickering, everyone, including the old man, was stunned. Then they burst into extremely shocked cries. Heaven-grade soul. It stopped at the purple bar. It's a heaven-grade soul. How old is he? Genius. Another genius has appeared. The onlookers' eyes were full of shock, and they shouted in a low voice. Who would have thought that the soul quality of a 12-year-old boy would be so excellent? Everyone's reaction also made Achu proud. She made a face at Li Shiran from afar, indicating that Li Shiran should also take the test. I don't know what method this old man used. I reckon this soul-measuring crystal is his true Tao artifact. It can suppress souls. The seven-colored celestial crystal is just a smokescreen. Su Yi's eyes gleamed coldly. When he looked at the old man again, his face was half green. He stared at the soul-testing crystal in a daze, and his eyes flickered. Old man, give us your Taoist artifact. Looking at the Taoist artifact in his hand, the old man's face was gloomy and bright. He said shyly, even if I give you this Taoist artifact, it won't recognize you as its master. It's a free gift. Suddenly, the people behind him jeered, What? Are you trying to renege on your debt? Didn't you say you'd test the soul and give us a Taoist artifact? Liar. Su Yi immediately raised his eyebrows and walked towards the old man with a smile. At this time, the young man in brocade waved the folding fan in his hand. Pa, wait. Su Yi squinted and saw the young man in brocade, saying coldly to the old man, If he can have a heaven-grade soul, I can have a heaven-grade soul too. Let me take the test too. Boom. With a turn in the air, the young man in brocade passed through the crowd and flashed to the soul-testing crystal. He exerted a little force, and another strange phenomenon occurred. Wow. Is it another heaven-grade soul? What's going on? Are heaven-grade souls cabbages? Are they everywhere? All the onlookers were in high spirits again. Obviously, this was no longer a matter of who had the Taoist artifact. The young man in brocade was going against Su Yi. Say it. What should we do? The young man in brocade frowned with a trace of slyness and complacency in his eyes as he spoke while swaying. Su Yi was not in a hurry. He walked to the soul-testing crystal and clenched his fist slightly. The Origin Supreme technique was immediately unleashed. An explosive aura shrouded the crystal like a sponge, absorbing the energy. The soul-testing crystal instantly turned into a pile of ordinary stones and revealed its original appearance. It was actually a pocket-sized seven-color pagoda. What? It's actually a fake. Everyone immediately reacted and looked at the old man furiously. They saw the old man throwing the fake pagoda to the young man in brocade. Bang! The pagoda exploded like a bomb. The surrounding space where it was standing was invisibly scorching hot. The fire attribute energy immediately gathered. Before the Origin Emperor experts could reach him, the young man in brocade's expression changed abruptly. A water attribute energy rose from his feet, and a whirlpool tore the entire pagoda apart. Her long black hair was incomparably smooth, like a waterfall hanging upside down in front of her chest. Above her creamy skin, it revealed her perfectly round buttocks and incomparably delicate little face. Her face was bright and beautiful, and her facial structure was not quite the same as that of the Central Continent. It gave her a different kind of charm and was extremely charming. Please remember the domain name of this book. Mobile version of reading website. Chapter 1584. So, it's a little girl. Pretty good disguise. Su Yi chuckled. The girl in embroidered robe panicked as she looked down and saw a ball of fire attribute light rush out behind her. She screamed at the powerhouses who rushed over to protect her. You guys go chase. That swindler ran away. The two attendants looked up at the swindler, but there was no trace of the swindler. There was only a deep hole left on the ground, and the ground that had been dug up extended all the way. He escaped by burrowing into the ground. He's really a rat. Aya, catch that kid for me. Don't let that old swindler go either. The girl in embroidered robe was flustered and exasperated as she pointed at the flame afterimage left behind by Su Yi. Swoosh! The powerhouse was like the wind as he fled like lightning, leaving behind a faint afterimage. Everyone was stunned. It turned out that the old man was an old swindler, and Su Yi and the girl in embroidered robe already knew about it. They felt that their intelligence had been severely insulted and immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Only Li Shi ran. Situ Miang, Ah Chu, and the girl in embroidered robe were left in the open space. The girl in embroidered robe said to Ah Chu, Little brother, your soul talent is very powerful. You even stole my limelight. What are you trying to do? Situ Muyang's wind attribute origin energy erupted out and followed Su-yi all the way. With the assistance of spirit liquid, his cultivation at the third level of the origin void stage that was close to the fourth level of the origin void stage exploded out like a sword, and he glared fiercely at the young woman in embroidered robes. You guys really? I'm here to expose this swindler. Why do you have to steal my limelight? The girl in embroidered robe rebuked. It turned out that this girl in embroidered robe wasn't here to denounce them. The three of them immediately let out a sigh of relief. Situmuyang was also from a large sect and did not lose in temperament at all. I'm Situmuyang. What's your name? Situmuyang took the initiative to resolve the awkwardness. The girl in embroidered robes' eyes curved as she tidied up her appearance and said to the three of them, I'm Han Yuro, immeasurable sex direct disciple. Hello, let's be friends? Seeing that Han Yuro had no intention of making things difficult for them, the three of them immediately changed their attitudes and bowed with smiles. Then, Han Yuro said, Judging from your attire, you don't look like locals. Where are you from? Situmuyang looked at the man in front of him, who was in his early 20s but was already a half-step primitive emperor. Such talent was definitely important in the limitless sect. We're from the central state. Your talent is pretty good. Situmuyang praised sincerely. This won't do. When I was your age, I might not even be able to compare to you. What are you all doing in the central state? Han Yuro tore off all her disguises, revealing her extremely beautiful face. Her delicate face was like a blooming lotus, which was very compatible with the geography of the cloud state. Hearing this, the eyes of the three of them lit up. There were millions of women in the world, but there were very few who could be so enchanting and graceful without the slightest pretentiousness. The hostility in their hearts just now vanished completely because of a smile that was just like a spring day. In fact, everyone knew the talent of the two of them. Situmuyang was around 14 or 15 years old and was already at the fourth level of the origin void stage. Han Yuro was in her early 20s and was already a half-step primitive emperor. Other than the difference in age, the strength of the two of them was not to be outdone. Moreover, compared to the limitless sect, Situmuyang still had an extremely terrifying sect backing him. That was why Situmuyang was able to walk freely in the world without any scruples. Han Yuro removed her disguise and relaxed. She exclaimed in a carefree manner and smiled at the three of them, appearing rather forthright. You're new here, so you're not familiar with the cloud state, right? Let's go. I'll bring you all to eat something delicious. Han Yuro acted like a big sister, which made the three of them laugh in their hearts. After saying that, Han Yuro brought Situmuyang and the others to a place called the First Grade Heaven Pavilion. They were all cultivators, so they ate the same food. When the dishes were served, many of the delicacies were made from the meat of the local barbaric demon beasts. Not only were they delicious, but they were also extremely effective. Han Yuro asked about their basic situation and casually asked, Is the fellow who stood up for you from the central province as well? When Chu saw Han Yuro mention Su-yi, a surge of excitement rose in her heart. She picked up a piece of barbaric demon beast meat and said proudly, Yes, my big brother Su is amazing. Cough, cough. Subsequently, Situmuyang and Li Shiran both coughed. Although they already knew that Han Yuro did not have any ill intentions, they still had to be cautious. It was best not to let others know Su-yi's name if they could. Chu immediately lowered her head and did not speak anymore. Han Yuro muttered in her heart, Big Brother Su? Miss Han, the two experts you sent won't have a dispute with Big Brother Su again, right? Li Shiran saw that Su-yi had not returned for a long time and was a little worried. Han Yuro frowned slightly and said softly, Qin Lang and Qin are my trusted aides, so they won't act recklessly. We have a conflict because we want to expose the swindler. Your big brother Su won't be so unreasonable, right? Boom! Suddenly, a burst of fire attribute energy rushed into the First Grade Heaven Pavilion like a sea of fire. The cultivators present all looked sideways and saw a figure at the door flashing between the three of them, like a flaming butterfly. "Big Brother Su," the three of them exclaimed in surprise. "He's quite handsome, and his cultivation has actually reached the 4th level of the Origin's sovereign realm." Han Yuro's heart was in a perilous situation. Her mouth was slightly open, but she could not say anything. When Qin Lang and Qin, who were about to rush in, Han Yuro waved her hand and asked them not to follow in. She then stood guard outside the door. Situ Muyang immediately approached and said to Su, "Junior Marshal Uncle, you caught him?" Sui nodded and said softly. He originally wanted to find some clues about the headquarters of the Imperial Heaven Palace from the old swindler, but he didn't expect him to be a complete swindler, so he let him go. "You guys also want to go to the Imperial Heaven Palace?" Han Yuro interrupted. A cold light flashed in Su Yi's eyes. He didn't have a good impression of Han Yuro. He didn't answer and let the three of them pack up before continuing to search. When he first entered the ceiling Cloud County, Su Yi felt that something was wrong with his whole body. His heart and soul trembled violently. According to the route of the Imperial Heaven Palace's headquarters in a remote alley in Central Continent City, the teleportation point of the Imperial Heaven Palace must be here without a doubt. "Let's go." Su Yi looked at the three of them and said. Suddenly, a biting, cold, murderous aura shot over from high up in the air. Han Yuro frowned and asked seriously, "What about you guys? Are you guys also going to the Imperial Heaven Palace?" The three of them glanced at Su Yi and didn't have the intention to speak. Li Shiran mediated and said softly, "This is a serious matter. I hope Miss can forgive us. Our meeting is fate. I hope we will have the chance to meet again in the future." As soon as her voice fell, the four of them quickly walked out of the first-grade Heaven Pavilion, leaving Han Yuro alone in the same place. "Fate? Then we might have an ill-fated relationship." Han Yuro sneered softly. Chapter 1585. When Su Yi and Situ Muyang came out from first-grade Heaven Pavilion, the sky was still bright. Su Yi looked around. On both sides of the street were noisy shouts, cultivators, and refiners. Strangely, there was still no reaction from the badge. Slightly frowning, Situ Muyang told Su Yi about the situation just now. Su Yi said softly, "I already know this. If it wasn't for this, those two experts from Infinite Gate wouldn't have been able to come back. We're only going to Heavenly Palace. Try not to make enemies." Infinite Gate was the strongest power in Cloud Province. It also had deep accumulations. Like Sacred Mountain, it was an extremely terrifying behemoth. Heavenly Palace was aloof and isolated from the outside world. Infinite Gate was also the strongest power. A mountain couldn't hold two tigers. The surface of peace still couldn't hide the ups and downs under the surface. Hearing this, Situ Muyang nodded. Looking at the hurried figures on the street, he asked, "Then where should we go now?" Situ Muyang scratched his ear and asked. Currently, Suian Province was neither big nor small. We didn't have any good ideas. If it wasn't for Merciless West, he wouldn't have known that the Unremarkable House was the Central Province branch of Heavenly Palace. However, a bad premonition gradually surged in Su Yi's heart. Heavenly Palace didn't come to pick up the badge holder. This was extremely unusual for Heavenly Palace, which had always been extremely powerful and had the means to reach the heavens. There were two possibilities. First, Heavenly Palace knew he was coming and purposely made things difficult for him. Second, something happened in Heavenly Palace. The Su family was still in the main palace of Heavenly Palace. Hopefully, nothing bad happened. Su Yi's brows gradually filled with frost. He was secretly anxious. Thinking about it carefully, the old swindler wasn't completely clueless. According to the old swindler, he was also an alchemist and had some relationship with the Heavenly Palace. The pagoda, hidden in the best quality soul-testing crystal, was a gift from an old friend of the Heavenly Palace. Originally, he did not have any great ability. Now that he was old, he did not have any source of soul-measuring crystals for cultivation. Thus, he thought of this method and was willing to use the pagoda in exchange for his life. He hoped that Su Yi would not blame him. The treasures of Imperial Command Palace were extremely popular in the entire 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. If any artificer who couldn't enter Imperial Command Palace could obtain a pill or a weapon from Imperial Command Palace, it would be a great honor for them. It would be enough to comfort them for the rest of their lives, and it would be a lifetime medal. That pagoda is indeed not bad. The seven-colored exquisite mystic origin Rui pagoda is able to suppress soul energy and has a certain ability to restrict those below the primitive emperor realm. It was simply the best aid in a battle against a soul controller. Muyang, where's the Rui pagoda? Sui asked. Just now. He was in a hurry to catch the old swindler, so he didn't pay attention to the whereabouts of the pagoda. Sitamyang pointed at his own spatial bag and said softly, Hee, it's here. I saw that no one was paying attention to it, so I kept it. He smiled faintly as a plan emerged in his mind. He said to the three of them, All right, let's go. Let's go take a look around. This Seal Cloud County is filled with experts. If Imperial Command Palace doesn't come looking for us, we'll go and catch them. Inside first-grade Heaven Pavilion, Han Yuro's eyes were cold. Qin Lang and Qin who stood at the side and said respectfully, Young miss, what should we do next? Sect Master didn't tell us the location of Imperial Command Palace. Coming out without permission is not allowed. Han Yuro tapped her chin and said, That Su guy, how could he let you guys go? That brat's methods are very tough. We also don't want to create unnecessary trouble. After all, young Miss came out without permission. We'll just say that we're disciples of Limitless Sect and that we're also here to catch swindlers. We didn't want to provoke him. Qin Hu said in a muffled voice. That brat is quite strange. We'll have to investigate him later. However, the Imperial Command Palace's headquarters has always been a threat to our Limitless Sect. Father doesn't want to provoke them, but I won't. I'll go and show them who's boss. Qin Lang and Qin Hu agreed with Han Yuro and continued. Then, young miss, what should we do next? It's not that easy to find the Imperial Command Palace's headquarters. That Su guy will definitely find it. Just follow them. You guys don't have to follow me. I'll contact you when I need you. Yes. Whoosh whoosh. Two wind-breaking sounds could be heard. Like an afterimage, Han Yuro's figure disappeared into thin air. She changed into a set of female clothes and walked out of first-grade Heaven Pavilion. Around the corner, in a certain plaza. Come. Everyone, if you have good eyesight, don't miss this. A slightly plump merchant stood on a high platform and constantly spoke to the people coming and going. He waved his hands to attract people to come and watch. Today, our Wind Crane Refining Alliance will pass by here and visit all the mountains and rivers in the Cloud region. We're here to bring everyone the best heavenly treasures for cultivation. Regardless of whether you're a novice or a great expert, there will definitely be something you want here. The Wind Crane Refining Alliance is the best choice for home and traveling. There are also elixirs and weapons refined by our alliance. Everyone, come and take a look. If you have good things in your hands, we also support you in taking them back. The plump merchant's voice was extremely vigorous. His voice was like the sound of gongs and drums. Once his voice spread out, it immediately attracted a large group of people. This Ceiling Cloud region is simply a large-scale auction house. You can do business anywhere and anytime. Li Shiran and Ah Chu were slightly moved. The Cloud region was truly a paradise for refiners. Young Marshal Granduncle, do you think the Imperial Command Palace's people are hiding here? Situ Muyang asked. The badge in Su Yi's chest suddenly flashed with a bit of light. He immediately became ecstatic and said, They must be hiding here. It's just that they have suppressed their souls so well that they can't be seen in the crowd. The people from the Imperial Command Palace are all arrogant and aloof. Go and provoke them. I guarantee it will be useful. Situ Muyang's mouth curved into a sly smile. He slowly nodded and walked forward. He then loudly said to the plump merchant, Boss, do you accept the items from the Imperial Command Palace? What? The items from the Imperial Command Palace. You're not lying to me, right? The plump merchant was a bit doubtful and looked at the young man in front of him with a half-truth and half-lies. Situ Muyang's one sentence caused everyone to hold their breaths. Their big eyes were wide open as they stared at the stage. The items from the Imperial Command Palace were rarely leaked. Each treasure was the blood and sweat of its refiners. To be able to be passed down in the world, it was definitely extremely rare and priceless. Situmuyong took out the pagoda from his chest. Immediately, a high-level Tao treasure's spirit energy directly rushed forward. The wind was like a tidal wave, bringing with it a boundless soul wave that shook everyone's soul. A high-level Tao treasure. Even if it isn't a treasure from the Imperial Command Palace, it is still extremely rare. Young noble, how much do you want? Situmuyong shook his head and sighed. This Imperial Command Palace thing is said to be very popular in the Cloud region, but in my hands, I'm a martial cultivator with too many treasures. It really isn't that useful. If someone can give me some primal stones, let's see who will pay more. Chapter 1586. Wow, it was still acceptable to buy it with a soul-testing stone, but this guy wanted to exchange it for money? Immediately, the crowd was filled with righteous indignation because they didn't have many good things on them. Envy, jealousy, and hatred made them lose their minds, and the crowd kept cursing. In order to appease the crowd, the fat merchant smiled awkwardly and said, "Young master, you can't say that. We are all people who treat money like dirt. You can't compare us with those ordinary people." "Oh, yes, yes, yes." Situmuyong pretended to be apologetic and said to the people present, "Light." He could feel a strong reaction from the badge at this moment. There were indeed people from Yutian Palace present, and more than one. Their souls were fluctuating because of Situmuyong's words, and they were furious. He was secretly delighted, and Ah Chu and Li Shiran couldn't help but laugh, thinking, Muyong is really good at acting. Everyone, I was wrong just now. This pagoda can't be sold for money, but I have a lot of Dao tools and magic tools. I really don't care about Yutian Palace's things. How about this? I have always admired alchemy and refining. If anyone has a better pill for me, I will accept it. It doesn't matter if it's worse. Situmuyong's words once again caused a big commotion. Everyone present was noisy, and some people's faces were red as they kept shouting. "Young man, wait. I have a Huang grade pill here." "That's nothing. I have a mysterious grade pill here." Bang! A vast wave of spiritual energy spread out from the crowd. A handsome man with sword-like eyebrows were slightly slanted, and his brows were tightly knitted. He was tightly held back by the person beside him. "Senior brother, don't pull me. This kid is too much. He really doesn't put us in his eyes. We are just here to receive the guests. Don't worry about other things." "Receive what?" The vice palace master said that he doesn't have any strength, so don't care about him. If it's Sui, then there's even less of a need to care. He caused our Central State Branch Palace to meet with disaster, implicating Elder Guyue, and now there are even people humiliating our Heavenly Command Palace. What does this count for? Suyi's face instantly turned cold. He laughed coldly and said, "As expected, Yutian Palace is intentionally making things difficult for me. Very good. I want to see what kind of monster this Vice Palace Master is." Boom! Instantly, a surge of earth attribute Yuan Qi drilled out from the ground. 2 rays of Yuan Qi light were like tentacles, directly dragging the 2 people out. Suyi's expression changed slightly. He dashed out at lightning speed, only to see Han Yuro standing outside the crowd. Han Yuro's pretty face turned cold. She pulled the 2 deeper into the alley and said to the 2 who just spoke, "You 2 are from Yutian Palace? Is this how you treat your guests? Who are you? Why do you care?" The 2 disciples were dragged out. Because of their low cultivation, they directly sat on the ground and couldn't get up. Their eyes were filled with rising anger as they gritted their teeth and spoke. Then, Hanyuro smiled and took out a jade token. There were divine patterns constantly moving on it, as if an immeasurable amount of heaven and earth energy was faintly emitted. The word immeasurable was written on it. Immeasurable sect master? The 2 disciples' expressions changed drastically, their eyes filled with fear. "I am under the orders of the sect master to seek guidance from Yutian Palace. Now bring me to Yutian Palace, or die." Han Yuro's gentle voice was like a spring breeze, but it contained rolling, killing intent. A terrifying aura immediately pressed down on the two. What are you doing? Trying to take advantage of us? He took a big step forward, his speed as fast as lightning. His face was stern and cold. Which eye of yours saw me taking advantage of you? I found Juqian Palace myself. What does it have to do with you? You, he had always been the scoundrel. Today, he met someone who was even more scoundrel than him. He was instantly speechless. Moreover, it seemed like Han Yuro was definitely related to the immeasurable sect master. Now is not the time to make trouble. Surnamed Su, the people of Juqian Palace are already here and they won't bring you there. Why do you still have to shamelessly ask to go? Han Yuro chuckled. The two disciples' faces were filled with shock. They looked at Su-yi with fear and said, "You are the Su-yi that the Vice Palace Master mentioned?" "That's right. Why did your Vice Palace Master stop me from attacking?" One disciple's eyes flashed and said, "Because the Central State Branch Palace was implicated by you and Elder Gyue didn't recruit you." The Vice Palace Master was deeply angry. Not only did he demote Elder Gyue, he also ordered that Su-yi is not allowed to enter the palace. If Elder Gyue was like this, then how could the Su family in Juqian Palace be protected? What about my Su family? What's Su family? The two disciples glanced at each other and didn't understand. Su-yi's heart skipped a beat and said, "Didn't Elder Gyue bring my Su family to Juqian Palace? Speak, otherwise I'll kill you all." Boom. Su-yi activated the primordial chaos supreme technique, spreading out with an unstoppable force. Cold stars flashed in his eyes, and the unparalleled power seemed to have crossed the ancient mountains and came over. Immediately, everyone's throat trembled. They swallowed a mouthful of saliva and began to suck in cold breaths. "It's useless even if you kill us. We've never heard of this Su family." Elder Gyue of Juqian Palace came alone. The two disciples trembled as they stared at Su-yi. Grandpa Su Yuntian and the Su family had always been Su-yi's weak spot. He wouldn't allow anyone to touch them. If something really happened at Juqian Palace, then this trip to Juqian Palace would definitely be covered with a bloody veil. Such a strong pressure. Han Yuro's eyes were filled with shock. "Su-yi, we have different reasons for going to Juqian Palace. Let's go together. Once we're there, you do your thing, and I'll do mine." Han Yuro knew that Su-yi's trip to Juqian Palace had something to do with the Su family, which was why she was so nervous. Big Brother Su. At this time, Sita Muyang, Li Shiran, and the others had already arrived. The moment they arrived, their mouths were tightly shut. Han Yuro even gently shook her head, indicating for them not to speak. The bone-chilling coldness was like an ice cellar, freezing all the anger present. Sita Muyang's heart skipped a beat. "Muyang, you go back to the sect first. I can handle Juqian Palace myself," Su-yi said in a deep voice. Sita Muyang had been with him for too long. They had already agreed to part ways when they reached Yinzhou. Now that he had found the location of Juqian Palace, there would be a lot of twists and turns in the future. Su-yi didn't want Sita Muyang to waste his cultivation time with him. Junior martial uncle. Sita Muyang was about to continue speaking when he was grabbed by Li Shiran, who frowned. "Ai." Sita Muyang saw Su-yi like this and knew that he couldn't persuade him. He thought that something would definitely happen and then sighed faintly. "All right, if Junior martial uncle is in trouble, I will definitely bring those freaks from the sect over and ruthlessly overturn Juqian Palace." Sita Muyang's eyes flashed with a trace of cold lightning. "Junior martial uncle, take care of yourself. I'll go back to the sect first." Sita Muyang took a deep look at Su-yi, then nodded heavily to Li Shiran and Ah Chu. The wind attribute Yuan Qi under his feet suddenly rose, and in a flash he disappeared into the void. Chapter 1587. So, Su-yi threw his half-grade soul emblem to the two Command Heaven Palace disciples. On the dazzling gold emblem, there was a triangular shape with 7 streaks of lightning. The last streak of lightning was faintly discernible. Immediately after, An extremely heavy soul energy spread out, surging towards the two disciples of Heavenly Command Palace. Third grade early stage soul controller master. One of the disciples exclaimed, and a heaven grade soul controller. This was no small matter. Han Yuro, Li Sure ran, and Chu's eyes widened as they looked at the injured badge of the Heavenly Command Palace disciple. Su-yi didn't care and said in a deep voice, "Take me to the Heavenly Command Palace now. Quickly." A heaven-grade soul controller master would become an incomparably terrifying existence in the entire 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 sea. They were the top talents that all the top sects would fight for. It was rumored that a top heaven-grade soul controller master was comparable to an army of thousands. And in Juntian Palace, a heaven-grade soul controller master could obtain the support of the entire Juntian Palace's resources. They could even obtain the guidance of those experts who were already living in seclusion. In the future, a heaven-grade soul controller master would be able to move unhindered in the world. According to Elder Gyue, that was the best treatment that even the Sacred Mountain, Tai Ching sect, Immeasurable sect, Divine Tiger sect, and Sky Dragon sect couldn't provide. Su-yi believed that with this emblem, the Juntian Palace disciples wouldn't be able to refuse his request. Yes, the 2 Command Heavenly Palace disciples scrambled to their feet, terrified beyond words. Looking at Su-yi in front of them, not only was his combat strength outstanding, but his soul was also much stronger than theirs. Their hearts were filled with raging waves. "Let's go." Su-yi looked up. Subsequently, Su-yi, Han Yuro, and the rest followed the 2 Imperial Heavenly Palace's disciples through a series of twists and turns, passing through several secluded streets before they arrived at a small house. This small house was similar in style to the other buildings in the Cloud region, but it still exuded a mysterious and boundless aura. Just as Su-yi had guessed, the moment he entered the small house, a surge of heaven and earth energy assailed his nostrils. "Lord Su, this is the teleportation point of the headquarters. It's under the jurisdiction of the Cloud region's branch palace. If there's anything you need, you can directly teleport back to the headquarters through here," the Imperial Palace's disciple said respectfully. Unknowingly, the two's attitude towards Su-yi and the way they addressed him changed. Su-yi suddenly realized why the badge didn't react before. It turned out that Songyan County was only a teleportation point for the Heavenly Palace. Plus, the 2 disciples didn't come here to pick him up, so naturally there was no reaction. Suddenly, a whirlpool-like spiritual energy spread out in front of everyone. Everyone exclaimed in surprise. In less than a moment, everyone turned into specks of light and dissipated in a bright light curtain. The water coils around the green hills and the mountains around the water. The mountains float on the green waters and the water flowed on the mountains. On the surface of a vast and boundless lake, the beautiful scenery of the mountains along the shore was reflected. It was incomparably hazy. Under the reflection of the sky, it was magnificent and wonderful. In the clear sky, there was a large patch of white left, like a sparse and elegant ink. The mountains passed through the water, and a few water ducks walked on the water, splashing out white water foam like flying jade flowers. Between the mountains and rivers, there was a sky-high and faint clouds, like a paradise outside of the material world. It was really a scene of cold rain connecting the river. The vast expanse of mist gave people a feeling of peace in the mortal world, and the great Tao was in the sky. The heaven and earth energy here is even denser than the boundless river. I actually didn't know, but how is this the headquarters? Han Yuro and Su-yi stood on the shore, and in front of them was a panoramic view of the vast and boundless river. In the distance, the treetops of the cloud mist, the misty valleys were as clear as a knife. The grass and trees were verdant, and the birds were chirping. Where was the appearance of a sect? Miss, you can make a guess. Lord Su can also make a guess. The Imperial Palace's disciple had a smile on his face, as if he was watching a good show. Imperial Palace is truly detached. They don't want to have too much to do with the mortal world. Su-yi, who had been frowning along the way, saw the boundless and majestic scenery in front of him, and his mood became much better. He then smiled and used the imperial art of heaven to spy on the location of Imperial Palace. From the depths of his mind, an extremely warm energy wrapped around him. Immediately, strands of lustrous light rushed out and appeared with a thought. The Imperial Palace's disciple, who was originally very proud of the scenery and wanted everyone to guess where the entrance was, immediately became frightened again. He softly said, "How does he know the imperial art of heaven? Didn't he not join Imperial Palace?" "Lord Su, you can't." Boom! Along the way, the supreme art of origin, the heavenly beasts, ancient scripture, and the imperial art of heaven were the three great cultivation methods that Su Yi vowed to never give up. Using them now was naturally easy. Su Yi's miraculous ability once again made Han Yuro, Ah Chu, and Li Shi ran dumbfounded and gasped. As soon as the imperial art of heaven was used, Su Yi's spiritual sense expanded countless times. The wind, the sun, the moon, the mountains, the sea, and the falling leaves could all be easily captured by Su Yi. Under Su Yi's concentration, the incomparably powerful soul energy became extremely majestic and powerful. Immediately, the heavenly origin beast soul in his mind was like a blazing sun, emitting an extremely condensed light. "There are remnant souls nearby," Su Yi said in his mind. "The imperial art of heaven ranks soul controller. This is bad." The hearts of the disciples of Imperial Palace thumped, feeling the fluctuations around Su Yi's body, which were like waves connecting with the lake in front of them. The two disciples of Imperial Palace clearly felt that Su Yi's Yuan Qi attribute and soul affinity was more than one level higher than theirs. This talent is on par with eldest senior brother. After a while, Su Yi was overjoyed. There were a lot of water attribute remnant souls around, which was just right for his Yuan Qi attribute. Chilala. As the hand seal condensed, the air around Su Yi's palm constantly fluctuated, and the light flickered like a sunset. The bottom of the lake in front of him constantly rippled, and a monstrous aura gradually rose. The water mist filled the air, and the light was dazzling. Boom! Immediately, dragon-shaped water droplets rushed into the sky, and countless water droplets fell. A white flood dragon that spanned across the heaven and earth roared proudly in the void. Its aura was majestic, and its fierce eyes that were as bright as the moon flashed with a fierce light as it stared at everyone. Roar! Ferocious and ferocious, its roar shook the sky. Like a living creature, a powerful aura fluctuated out, and the entire lake became bone-chillingly cold, and the surrounding temperature dropped rapidly. With such a powerful remnant soul, the white flood dragon raised its head and charged directly at him. Su Yi's eyes flashed with a cold light, and he immediately activated the heavenly origin beast soul. The blazing fire attribute Yuan Qi formed a wall of Qi, and like a spatial barrier, it blocked in front of him. Bang! Chapter 1588. Dong! The scorching heat wave came from all directions. Li Shi ran, Ah Chu, and the others could not block it in time and fell to the ground. Their eyes were filled with shock. The impact of the white flood dragon god is too shocking. Han Yuro was also anxious. She used her vital qi to create a shield in front of her. She was still in a daze from the unparalleled force just now. The clouds gradually disappeared, and the rain passed through the golden rainbow. The colorful light shone between Su Yi and the white flood dragon god. Su Yi used the Fuyao 100 transformation steps and stepped in the air. At a low altitude, a clean white robe fluttered in the wind. A monstrous pressure that filled the heavens and the earth was completely unleashed. He was like a disdainful war god that dominated the world, majestic and incomparably domineering. The powerful Origin Supreme technique was constantly circulating in the great void spirit sea, urging the heavenly Origin demon soul that was glowing with the red light of the sun. The entire force of the attack was fearless. Hiss! As the rain fell, the white flood dragon god raised its head and let out a long roar. Its breath was like a storm that pushed everyone back. He was stunned. He pushed his yuan qi to the limit, and only then did he keep his feet firmly in place. What a powerful remnant soul! He exclaimed in his heart. It was comparable to Yun Qing's with spiritual god. If he had such a remnant soul to help him in the future, it would be like adding wings to a tiger. Kid, what are you planning now? The soul puppet's eyes drooped as it said, unhappily. What do you think if I take it? He smiled. Is this little worm comparable to me? I'm one of the rarest demons in this world. The soul puppet roared, expressing its dissatisfaction to its heart's content. He chuckled in his heart and said, Old ghost, you're still jealous. Get lost. The iron soulfish closed its eyes and ignored He muttered to himself. The iron soulfish posed no threat to him as long as he was in the entryway. If the immemorial Great Tribulation really came and he found out about the past, there would still be a result on the day of the chaotic battle between gods and demons. Before that, I just want to be myself. He said softly. Looking down, the two disciples of the Imperial Celestial Palace kept kowtowing to the sky, their eyes filled with fear. He bowed towards the sky and said with a trembling voice, White Flood Dragon God, this is a new disciple from Drive Heavenly Palace. He doesn't know the rules and disturbed your cultivation. Please forgive him. After he finished speaking, he continued to kowtow, his face ashen. Another Yuqian Palace disciple also said to Lord Su, you should quickly apologize as well. He is the sole contract item of one of our important people. Please don't do this. Please apologize quickly. The two from the Heavenly Palace urged to apologize, but turned a deaf ear to them. His eyes were cold. I don't care who you are. So what if you are an ancient remnant soul? It's reasonable for you to come out and bite me. Roar. There was another roar that shook the 9 heavens. There was a bone-chilling wind blowing, and the endless waves of air made people feel as if they had fallen into an ice cave. It was extremely dense. The white flood dragon's body was covered with steel-like dragon scales that had already materialized. It was obvious that it had stayed in the cloud region for a long time. The tough scales were surrounded by golden rainbow, shining brightly. They emitted the vicissitudes of thousands of years. Layer after layer, they transformed again and again. The white flood dragon god could no longer be compared to ordinary remnant souls of barbarian demons. It could be said that it was an extremely powerful demon ancestor expert. Its ferocious eyes were filled with killing intent as it looked at Sui. Its breathing was heavy like the wind. Above the void, one flood dragon and one human, one big and one small, but their auras were almost the same. Whoosh whoosh. At this moment, there were a few wind-breaking sound from afar. A few long-robed disciples streaked across the sky and arrived in front of Sui in an instant. The leader was around 30 years old and had the cultivation of a half-step Origin Emperor. He had a resolute expression. When he saw the white flood dragon god, his eyes moved slightly as he waved the horsetail whisk in his hand. Who are you? Suyi's face darkened. The disciples of the Command Heaven Palace were even more shocked. They said in shock, Senior Brother Tiange, this is the distinguished guest that came to the Command Heaven Palace this time. He is the Sui that the Vice Palace Lord and Elder Gyue often mentioned. Sui. Senior Brother Tiange was dazzled by the name. He took a closer look at Sui. He squinted his eyes, and there was a trace of shock in his heart. He muttered, At this age, you are already at the 4th level of the Origin Emperor realm. No wonder that old man Gyue recommended you so strongly. You have caused a lot of trouble, and even disturbed Lord Flood Dragon God's cultivation. Sui smiled and said patiently, Then what do you think we should do? Get lost. The Command Heaven Palace does not welcome you. Tiange stared at Sui and turned to leave with the 2 disciples behind him. The disciples of the Command Heaven Palace were embarrassed. They said in a deep voice, Lord Sui, Senior Brother Tiange is our senior brother guarding the mountain. We need his permission to enter. Unless we have the palace lord's personal order, I think we should leave. Su Yi was instantly enraged. Even if there were no Su clan members in the Command Heaven Palace, he still had to barge into the Command Heaven Palace today. He had not even entered yet, and was already rejected at the door. What kind of logic was this? Suddenly, the energy around Su Yi's body surged once again, and a fiery red whirlpool appeared beneath his feet. His aura was indescribably terrifying and murderous. The fierce aura locked onto the two people who were about to leave, and he shouted, "Wait! Get back here!" Deng! Tiange and the two disciples paused. Immediately, they circulated the art of Command Heaven and removed Su Yi's energy. They turned around with murderous intent in their eyes. "What, you want to barge in?" Su Yi frowned. His face was cold as ice. He said in a deep voice, as the saying goes, "The ignorant are innocent. I didn't know that the white flood dragon was cultivating in seclusion here. You people don't even know what's right or wrong, and you're rejecting a heaven-tier soul controller master. Your imperial celestial palace has dominated the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. Is this how rude you are?" The two disciples behind him whispered to Tiange, "Senior brother, the Command Heaven Palace has never dared to treat a heaven-ranked soul controller lightly. Are we really going to do this?" Tiange's eyebrows twitched. He said in a heavy voice, "Since the Vice Palace Lord is now the acting Palace Lord, we will listen to him. Su Yi is not allowed to enter the palace. He is not allowed." As if he had made up his mind, Tiange stared at Su Yi and said sternly, "So what if you're a heaven-ranked soul controller? The Command Heaven Palace can't do without you. I'll say it again, get lost." On the side, the white Jiao god's eyes were like torches. Its huge eyes were shining. Seeing the reaction of the two sides, it raised its head and roared again. Ignited by the Jiao god's aura, Su Yi's anger surged. He shouted, "I must enter the Command Heaven Palace today. Those who stop me will die. The Command Heaven Palace will not tolerate your impudence." Tiange and the two disciples behind him shouted. Their hands were constantly changing seals. The horsetail whisk floated, and the remnant souls of the fire eagle, fierce leopard, and wild bull gathered behind them. He didn't expect the 3 of them to be soul controllers. Soul controllers mainly relied on soul power. Cultivation was secondary. Su Yi roared in his heart. Today, he would use the methods of the Command Heaven Palace to slap their faces. The Heavenly Fae ancient scripture was quickly activated. At the same time, his hands formed the art of Command Heaven. "White Jiao God, serve me." Chapter 1589. Boom! The white Jiao dragon clearly felt a mysterious force driving it. Its huge body was constantly twisting in the air. Su Yi fully activated the Origin Supreme technique and the Tianyuan ancient scripture, and there were also 2 kinds of forces surging wildly in his body. If one could see inside, they could clearly see that inside Su Yi's body, the blazing Tianyuan demon soul emitted a dazzling light, and the crazy soul energy spread like waves to everyone's body. The white Jiao dragon's fierce eyes exuded an extremely unusual light. Its vigilant eyes not only contained fear, but also a trace of intimacy. The white Jiao dragon sniffed, and Su Yi activated the art of driving the heavens again. Then the white Jiao dragon let out a low cry, constantly moving its body in the air. Its huge body turned the lake bed upside down, and the water splashed in all directions. The raindrops that filled the sky shot towards the heavenly barge like cannonballs. Wave after wave of water bombs, as fast as lightning, blasted across the sky with a destructive intent of killing, leaving countless arcs in the air. The water waves soared into the sky, and the roar was like thunder. "How dare you! Don't hurt my divine soul protector!" The heavenly boat roared in the air, obviously able to guess Su Yi's intention. Roar! The 2 huge remnant souls of the fierce leopard and the wild bull spanned across the sky, and directly rushed over with their steel-like hooves. Their iron claws cut through the sky in front of them and violently collided with the water bombs. Boom! The sonic booms continued to rise and fall, and the endless airwaves made Li Shiran and Ah Chu's faces turn pale. Their eyes were full of surprise as they looked at the boundless ripples in the sky, their chests heaving up and down. Is this the battle of the Soul Controller Master? Ah Chu clenched her hands tightly, unable to suppress her excitement, and said to Li Shiran, "Whoosh!" Before they could react, a human-shaped water elemental energy flashed in front of them, and Han Yuro left a voice in the air. "Miss Li, Ah Chu, find a place to hide and take good care of yourselves. I'm going to help Su Yi." What should we do? The two disciples of Imperial Celestial Palace were sweating profusely, their eyes burning like flames. They were as anxious as ants on a hot pan, staring anxiously at the situation in the sky. Li Shiran and Chu looked at each other and then ran back. They found a huge rock to hide behind and watched the battle in the sky. They didn't want to let go of such a good opportunity to learn. Bang bang. GG. The fierce leopard and wild bull continued to fight with the water bullets in the air. At this moment, the fire eagle raised its wings and shook its blade-like feathers. It streaked across the sky and instantly appeared in front of Su Yi like a ball of fire. Su Yi was fully focused on subduing the white flood dragon god. The three great techniques enveloped Su Yi like a divine halo. At this moment, he simply couldn't do anything else. When he looked back, the firehawk was already right in front of him. "Little firebird, how dare you sneak attack me? Die!" His palm moved slightly, and before the brilliant light could erupt from his palm, the fire eagle was hit by a stream of water. Immediately, like a broken cloth bag, it shook its feathers and fell from the sky. Su Yi recognized Han Yuro, who was formed from water yuan qi from the dense water bullets. His spirits were instantly lifted, and Han Yuro also nodded heavily at him. "Hurry up and subdue it. Let's break in." "Okay." Su Yi shouted, his spirit roused. He turned to look at the white flood dragon god. After all, the white flood dragon god was not a corporeal body. After the battle, it was slightly exhausted. No one would have thought that Su Yi would have such a strong soul force. The Tian Yuan demon soul's blazing aura made Su Yi's body boil. The air around him was constantly rising, and the temperature was incomparably high. Hiss hiss. On the flood dragon's head, its small horns smashed into a small mountain nearby, forming a huge crater. The lake water was stirred up, and the world was filled with mist. Soon, the sky changed color. Su Yi seized the last chance and shouted. A beam of heavenly origin energy shot out from his eyes as he poured all of his soul energy into the white Jiao dragon. Originally, when a remnant soul was drawn out, as long as one's soul force was heaven-defying and one's cultivation was strong enough, the remnant soul would directly belong to them. But according to the disciples of the Heavenly Drive Palace, this white flood dragon was originally the contracted beast of a big shot of the Heavenly Drive Palace. After its death, the remnant soul's will was too deep, and it stayed at the entrance of the cloud region. At this moment, it was naturally not easy for Su Yi to tame it. Looking at the ferocious white flood dragon, Su Yi's aura and chi burst out. The collapsing space seemed to stop. Following the roars and pressure, the white flood dragon couldn't speak. Under Su Yi's majestic power, it gradually submitted to Su Yi and no longer resisted. In the end, it obediently crawled on the ground and rubbed against Su Yi to show its intimacy. "Impossible!" The disciples of the Heavenly Drive Palace on the side roared. "The white flood dragon god will only obey." "No, absolutely impossible." As soon as they finished speaking, several fan-shaped water elemental energy surrounded them in the air, catching them all in one fell swoop. Immediately, the remnant souls and cultivators in the sky all fell into the lake like birds with broken wings. Han Yuro stepped in the air and sneered, "With this little strength, you still have the time to care about others when you're fighting me." Rumble. In the distance, the white flood dragon soared into the sky. Su-yi stood on the head of the white flood dragon, looking down at the world with unparalleled majesty as he spoke to Han Yuro and Li Shiran behind her. Let's go. Let's enter the Heavenly Drive Palace. Big brother Su-yi, wait for me. Achu and Li Shiran were very excited. The battle between the five soul controllers ended with Su-yi subduing the white flood dragon. Su-yi stood on the head of the white flood dragon, looking down at the entire Heavenly Drive Palace. The scenery of the mountains and rivers was like a paradise. The lake that had already calmed down was now quiet and serene again, looking very mysterious. Lord Su, the entrance is at the bottom of the lake. Go quickly. If you blame us, you must speak for us. The two disciples of the Heavenly Drive Palace were terrified. This Su-yi had entered the palace. Who knew what kind of trouble he would cause? It was best not to offend him. Su-yi smiled and commanded the white flood dragon god to quickly go to the bottom of the lake, leaving behind the two who were still in a daze. How could this white flood dragon god submit to him? Even a palace lord couldn't subdue it. How could a fourth-level origin sovereign be so terrifying? The other disciple of the Heavenly Drive Palace was even more exaggerated. His eyes were as wide as copper bells as he said, "Our Heavenly Drive Palace is going to be lively. He even knows the art of driving heaven. Where did he learn it from?" Boom! The two stood up at the same time, looked at each other, and said, "Could it be? This doesn't make sense. Wasn't it already dead?" Chapter 1590. Let's go. If it's really like this, then we're really finished. Let's hurry up and save senior brother Tiange and inform the palace elders. Saying this, the two of them shook off the mud on their bodies and crawled into the river to fish out those unlucky bastards. The bottom of the lake was covered in water and grass. The deep blue lake water reflected the faint white clouds in the sky. The figures on the giant beast were like fish as they quickly found an incomparably large entrance. The entrance was shining with a faint yellow light. It was obviously a realm restriction. No wonder he didn't notice it earlier. The white flood dragon god's existence was probably to protect this place. Su-yi thought, Let's go in. It was difficult to speak underwater, so Su-yi transmitted his voice to everyone with his eyes narrowed. Roar! The white flood dragon god spat out a dragon-like water column from its mouth, striking the yellow light. Immediately, the entire deep blue lake became extremely bright. The yellow light soared into the sky, filled with boundless energy waves. Immediately, the entire lake was split into two. The white flood dragon head carried Su-yi, Li Shiran, and the others on the riverbed. The incomparably blue water was like another world, causing Su-yi to gasp in amazement. The fish on both sides swam back and forth freely, but they couldn't pass through. The light in the middle was like an extremely strong spatial barrier. Humph! Now I've finally seen something that my old man has never seen before. Han Yuro's eyes flashed as she looked at the jade-like world under the lake. Her heart was incomparably carefree. Su-yi also shook his head in amazement, thinking, there's actually such a great fortune in this world. No wonder no one knows where the headquarters of the Imperial Palace is. It's a pity that the remnant's soul can't speak. If the white flood dragon god could introduce it to us, then we would know more about the origin of the Imperial Palace. Boom! Strolling in the soft riverbed, the white flood dragon god's speed became faster and faster. Like lightning, it charged towards the stone door in the distance. Pong! The stone door exploded, and a sky full of light rushed towards Su-yi. The white flood dragon god put everyone down and bowed respectfully to Su-yi. Then it turned into countless light spots and disappeared into the sky. I don't know if I can still summon him later. Su-yi was a little disappointed, but he immediately pulled himself together and walked towards the light. As soon as he walked out, an incomparably huge mountain peak stood above the lake. At the bottom of the mountain peak was an endless lake. Under the clear sky, the mountain peak towered into the clouds. What stood before them was not a majestic mountain range, but an incomparably huge mountain peak. The mountain peak split into three, forming three peaks. On top of the mountain peaks, there were stairs spiraling upwards like lifelike dragons, all the way up to the clouds. The mountain peak was filled with the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. It was majestic and magnificent. Such a magnificent mountain peak gave people the feeling of an immortal dwelling on it. Cloud region actually had such a place. Let's go up, he said to Hanuro and the rest. He then turned into a stream of light and rushed up the cloud peak. Along the way, there were rows upon rows of houses that were filled with spiritual chi that soared into the sky. It was thicker than the aura of elixir pills and spiritual herbs. With a single glance, one could tell that this place had an abundance of elixir pills and weapons. Gosh, the spiritual chi here is too abundant. He squinted his eyes. The aura of the mountain peak in the middle was the thickest. It must be the place where the palace master resided. The few of them sprinted and arrived at the foot of the middle peak. Just as they were about to climb up, a few streams of light flew down rapidly. It was a few more figures. You are Sui? The person who spoke was around 30 years old. He had phoenix eyes and a high-nose bridge. He looked rather handsome, and his cultivation was at the second level of the Origin Emperor realm. He was wearing a green robe and had an aura. His eyes were cold as he sized up Sui. His eyes were not friendly. Sui gestured for Li Shiran and the rest to back off. He said, "What? Do you still want to fight?" A person beside him interrupted. Sui, don't misunderstand. This is not the place to talk. Don't cause a commotion here. Senior brother Tian Ho and we are here to receive you. Suyi's anger soared. He snorted and waved his sleeves. He said angrily, "I don't need your help. I can come in by myself. You can scram now." It turned out that the person who spoke first was called Tian Ho. He and Tian Gu belonged to the Tian generation. Tian Ho's face was gloomy and his eyes were cold. He looked at Sui without any fear and said anxiously, "Elder Guyue asked me to bring you over. Sui, don't you think you have caused enough trouble for Master? You are Elder Guyue's disciple." Sui turned his head. There was a slight change in his attitude. Tian Ho nodded. His long robe fluttered even though there was no wind. It showed his unfathomable aura and strength. Tian Ho was definitely not at the second level of the Origin Emperor realm. If he was also a soul controller, his strength should be an extremely powerful expert in the one mountain, 2 religions, 3 sects, and 4 factions. Let's go. Don't let anyone see you. Elder Guyue has been waiting for you for a long time. The disciple behind Tian Ho urged him. After pondering for a while, Sui looked at Hanuro. Hanuro shrugged and said softly, "You are the leader. We will go wherever you say. Anyway, I am here to be unlucky." Sui took a deep breath and cupped his hands. Sui, apologize for my offense. Please bring me to see Elder Guyue. In the past year, Sui had established a sect in the Chaos region, conquered second-rate forces, and made a name for himself. It was all thanks to Elder Guyue's support in the Sacred Martial Assembly. This time, Elder Guyue was implicated in this matter. Tian Ho didn't say anything else. He formed a hand seal, and a few 7th-level Origin Void Realm flying savage demonic beasts flew over. Their snow-white feathers shone resplendently under the sunlight. They were extremely beautiful. Their beaks were as sharp as knives. Snow-feather griffins, bring us to Master. Tian Ho's eyes suddenly became gentle. He touched the snow-feathered griffin's feathers and felt pity for them. Sui was suspicious. He used the Skyward 100 transformation steps, and a strong wind carried Li Shiran, Ah Chu, and the others onto the backs of the savage, demonic beasts. In an instant, the snow-feathered griffins broke through the sky. With a flap of its wings, the strong wind brought everyone up into the sky. Everyone exclaimed in surprise. They were amazed by the snow-feathered griffin's speed and impact. It was simply the starry sky of the flying world. Sui pondered. These are the birds that Master loves the most. When Master was the palace lord in the central state, I was the one who raised them. Other than the first time, Master would never let me touch them. After saying that, Tianho's slender face was filled with loneliness. He didn't say anything else. For Su-yi, Master had actually used the snow-feathered griffins to welcome him. To Tianho, this was already a great gift. Chapter 1591. The two disciples behind him looked at Su-yi with resentment. After Master came back, he went to the back peak a few times. Not long after, the palace master went into seclusion. Later on, Master was blamed by the acting palace master and was demoted to an elder with no duties. After that, Master simply stayed in seclusion at Lingquan Peak and didn't go anywhere. He didn't care about the griffin and left it to senior brother Tian Wu. Recently, Master summoned me and said that you were coming. He told me to get the griffin ready to welcome you at any time and rush to Lingyue Peak without delay. When we went to the elders' meeting on behalf of Master, someone suddenly barged in and said that you had entered the palace. We knew something was wrong and rushed over to take you back. If second senior brother got there first, it would be bad. The disciple beside him was still in shock as he recalled the scene at the meeting. Let's go. As long as it's not eldest senior brother, everything is fine. Let's get Master to meet him before the deputy palace master. After that, Tian Wu continued to sit on the griffin without saying a word. His robe and long hair fluttered in the wind, making him look like a hidden immortal. A few of them rode on the griffin. After a few leaps, they broke through the clouds and chased after the sun. In less than a quarter of an hour, they arrived at the center of the right peak. It was hard to tell from afar, but it turned out that there were 18 smaller peaks on the right side of the peak. It was like a hand, with 18 fingers of varying thickness placed horizontally on the right side of the peak. The entire Commandant Palace was like the palm of a giant, with countless branches, leaves, and vines growing out of it. It was magnificent and had a unique shape. On the palm, a milky white gas shrouded the peak of the mountain like clouds. The higher it went, the more it looked like a divine cloud. It was flowing with colorful lights and overflowing with golden light. It was extremely magical. Among them, each finger peak was extremely tall. They were like bamboo shoots that fell straight on the ground. They were neat and tidy, blocking the sun and clouds. It was very majestic. Each of the 18 finger peaks had a clear division. On the mountain, there was a lush forest and tall bamboo, a mountain of blades and swords, and the mountain that Tian Wu led Su-yi and the others to was at the center of the mountain peak, where the word "you" was written in large letters. The strokes are grand and unrestrained, lean and handsome, and the fluttering of dragons and snakes reveal a slight understanding of the hidden world. Every stroke is filled with the author's comprehension and pursuit of the Tao of martial arts and material refinement. Su-yi rode on and flew past, and he was still able to sense the profoundness and unfathomability of it while being surrounded by clouds and mist, and he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration in his heart. Good writing! This is what Master wrote in high spirits when he moved into Lingyue Peak after becoming an elder. Even now, it still retains the vigor and elegance of the past. His eyes were filled with excitement. When he spoke of his master and Ling Yefeng, his heart was filled with respect and admiration. Elder Guyue has a few good disciples, but what does Elder Wu mean by this? Su-yi asked in doubt. Tian Wu glanced at Su-yi, his eyes filled with surprise. It seemed that he really didn't know anything about Juqian Palace. When talking about Juqian Palace, Tian Wu's words flowed like a river. He was overflowing with interest, and his face was no longer dark as he introduced it to Su-yi. The headquarters of Juqian Palace had Mount Juqian as its axis and Gonkei Lake as its base. Mountains and rivers intersected, forming a circle. It gathered the core of yin and yang, gathered the energy of the sun, and gathered the essence of the moon. It absorbed the spiritual energy of all things and nourished spiritual birds and wild beasts. It was a rare treasure land for cultivators. Mount Juqian was split into 3 circles. The left side was the Gantian Mountain Branch Peak, where the martial arts, alchemy, blacksmithing, and alchemy factions cultivated and practiced. The right side was the Decoin branch peak, with 18 fingers. It was where the 18 most influential elders and their direct disciples lived. Because Juqian Palace rarely interfered with the martial arts of the world and only focused on alchemy and blacksmithing, they strived for perfection in the soul control Tao. Thus, these 18 elders were the core talents of Juqian Palace. They understood the most complete pill recipes, diagrams, scriptures, secret techniques, cultivation methods, and so on. They were the most important batch of talents in Juqian Palace. Among the 18 elders, the top 8 elders were in charge of teaching. There was a leading elder who was in charge of all teaching duties. His sole power was heaven-defying. A leading elder was in charge of all matters and personnel management. The annual Juqian Palace Soul Competition was the leading elder's most important task. Martial arts, alchemy, blacksmithing, and soul control. The 4 factions had 2 each for alchemy and blacksmithing, and 1 for martial arts and soul control. Martial arts only had 1 elder because Juqian Palace mainly focused on refining items and blacksmithing. They didn't pay much attention to martial arts, so 1 was enough. Soul control only had 1 elder because soul control masters were extremely rare. Good ones were even rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. The last 10 elders were in charge of all matters in the 6 continents, 3 continents, and 1 ocean. They were called the 10 Juqian Lords in Juqian Palace, enjoying unparalleled brilliance. They were on the same level as the Vice Palace Lord. In the center was the Middle Quake Peak. Its area and spiritual energy was something the left and right peaks couldn't compare to. Its specialty was mainly in the words hide, guard, and clumsy. Hide represented the heavenly martial house, heavenly pill house, heavenly soul house, heavenly artifact house, etc., which are all at the Middle Quake Peak. Guard meant that the core of Juqian Palace's defensive formation was at the Middle Quake Peak. Clumsy Middle Quake Peak might be the same size as the other peaks, but the back peak was incomparably large. Even the 3 Vice Palace Lords and Grand Elders could only live at the Middle Quake Peak. They never had the right to enter the back peak. Rumor has it that the back peak was dozens of times larger than the Middle Quake Peak. Moreover, the Palace Lord had ordered that no one was allowed to enter the back peak. Those who disobeyed would be killed. As for the ordinary disciples, guards, and visitors, they couldn't casually go to any of the peaks. Even if they wanted to go, they had to be led by an elder. They usually lived around Archkay Lake. The buildings they passed by earlier were where the ordinary disciples lived and studied. However, it was still the headquarters of Juqian Palace. The resources they could get were incomparable to the outside world. Roughly speaking, there were only a few thousand people living on Mount Juqian, including the elders. There were only a few 100,000 people in total. This was only the size of the 100 Herb Academy. However, Su-Yi knew that these few 100,000 people could go against the entire holy mountain without fear. One could see how terrifying this kind of power was. It was not an exaggeration to say that 1 person could fight against 10 people. The back peak has never allowed anyone to enter. Could it be that there is something hidden here? This palace master is also very mysterious. Su-Yi muttered, rubbing his chin as he pondered. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.